willing to sleep with you. Zhang Rui's unit was dismantled by the mutated creatures, once again breaking apart and scattering. The survivors fled in all directions, although they were not far from the military-established survivor gathering point in the coastal city. The number and scale of the mutated creatures far exceeded those around the coastal university and the Pingsong marketplace. Wang Cheng speculated that this was likely due to the large number of military personnel and survivors gathering, creating an attraction and aggregation effect for the mutated beings, leading to their mass gathering. Wang Cheng had not intended to finish off Xie Ran. Wasting bullets was one reason, and the other was that the monsters were surging like a tide, making Xie Ran's death a certainty. If he forced to finish, he would also be caught in the black tide, unable to move an inch, and ultimately would have to reveal his battleship to escape. That would be a loss without gain. At this moment, his vehicle sped forward at high speed, and there were quite a few people fleeing in the same direction, some of whom seemed to have noticed that Wang Cheng had just taken down Xie Ran and others. Even some survivors actively gathered around Wang Cheng. He didn't mind. If they wanted to surround him, so be it. Wang Cheng remained calm, while Wang Qi was still in shock. The recent counterattack had left him extremely shaken. The people in those two vehicles, armed with dozens of guns, had been resolved just like that. He almost thought he had seen it wrong. Wang Cheng's vehicle actually had a firepower system, allowing the occupants to shoot while inside. What is this? Is this still a car? This is clearly an armored vehicle disguised as a private car. Previously, the shared electric bike that Wang Cheng had was already quite unbelievable in Wang Qi's eyes, but now, this new vehicle seemed even more outrageous to him. However, Wang Qi knew how to keep his composure, although he was still shaken and looked surprised. He refrained from asking any unnecessary questions, even though Wang Cheng didn't say much. Wang Qi secretly resolved to keep Wang Cheng's matters to himself and not speak to anyone else about them. Otherwise, it might bring unnecessary trouble to Wang Cheng. Having been saved by Wang Cheng several times, Wang Qi felt genuine gratitude and sincerely hoped for Wang Cheng's well-being. At this moment, Wang Cheng gradually slowed down the vehicle. He had finally shaken off the dark tide of mutated beings behind him and came to a stop in a relatively safe residential area. Once he stopped, the survivors who had been following him also came to a halt. Wang Cheng glanced at them through the rearview mirror, but didn't say anything. He turned to Wang Qi and said, "Let us rest in the vehicle. We'll take turns sleeping. You can sleep first for a few hours, and then we'll set off to the military's survivor gathering point." Given the surrounding dangers, Wang Cheng decided not to get out of the car. But he was indeed tired. Since yesterday, he had hardly rested, and both his energy and physical strength had significantly declined. With only about 6 or 7 kilometers left to the military's temporary survivor gathering point, he planned to take a short nap to recharge before setting off. Aiming to reach the city's military survivor gathering point by tomorrow, Wang Qi nodded nervously, holding the gun issued to him by the military. "It's fine. I'm not tired. You just rest, and I'll keep watch." Wang Qi looked at him. He was indeed exhausted, so he didn't insist further. "That's good then. You work a bit harder. If you get hungry, there's food in the back. Take whatever you need." Wang Qi was so touched by this offer that he almost shed tears. After so long in the apocalypse, he had only experienced having his belongings stolen. Aside from the military, no one had ever given him anything, let alone something to take freely. However, Wang Qi didn't actually take Wang Cheng's food. He had grown a lot during the apocalypse and was quite sensible. Previously, the military had issued him some food, which he now took out to eat. Wang Cheng didn't think too much about it. With the surroundings being dangerous, after giving his instructions, he took the opportunity to close his eyes and rest. However, Wang Cheng's rest didn't seem to be that simple. It wasn't long before a few people approached their vehicle, trying to pry open the door with crowbars and other tools. These were survivors from other vehicles who had just seen the power of Wang Cheng's vehicle and were filled with greedy thoughts, attempting to break in and take over. These few survivors didn't even have guns, but were very bold. Unfortunately for them, while Wang Cheng's vehicle looked like a car, it was essentially a war machine and had been locked down by Wang Cheng. There was no way they could break in. What did they want? Wang Qi immediately shouted a warning, gripping his gun tightly. Wang Cheng suddenly opened his eyes and immediately spotted these people. The several survivors, seeing that their situation was hopeless, revealed fierce expressions and frantically struck the car windows with their makeshift weapons, hoping to break through. However, they forgot that even with firearms, the previous group had failed to shatter the windows of the vehicle. They were a pitiful bunch, yet also quite repulsive. Wang Qi nervously asked, "What should we do?" Wang Cheng turned to him and asked, "Did you kill any mutated beings while we were in the convoy?" Wang Qi was somewhat confused, unsure why Wang Cheng was asking this at that moment. "I think I shot a few. Have you killed anyone?" Wang Qi began to understand, raising his head to look at the people outside who were still desperately smashing the windows, clinging to their reckless dreams. He swallowed hard. Wang Cheng didn't urge him, but simply said, "Only by helping oneself can one survive for long." Wang Chi's gaze flickered as he held his gun, reflecting on his previous aimless journey. After a moment, he gritted his teeth and said, "Wang Cheng, no. Brother Wang, let me get out." Wang Chi felt a surge of determination. With Wang Cheng's help now, what about the future? He didn't want to miss this opportunity, even if he had never killed before. He wanted to train himself in it, especially against these survivors who wished to harm him. Wang Chi got out of the car, and Wang Cheng followed suit. It was a massacre. As long as Wang Chi dared to fire, even with the enemy's numbers, they were no match for Wang Cheng. Even if Wang Chi couldn't handle them alone, Wang Cheng was there to back him up. The criminals were quickly shot down. Holding his gun, Wang Chi had blood splattered across his face and was trembling all over, breathing heavily. He was just an ordinary college student who had never done anything wrong, let alone kill anyone. Throughout this apocalypse, he had been bullied by others, but he knew that his future would change from this moment on. At that moment, another survivor pushed open the door of a red Mazda nearby and stepped out. Wang Chi shivered and was about to shoot, but managed to hold back at the last moment. The woman from the car was an attractive young woman who had approached them because she recognized Wang Cheng and the others as formidable. She was beautiful in her youth. She must have been a stunning woman, and now she carried a mature charm. If it weren't for the apocalypse, it would have been very fortunate for an ordinary student like Wang Cheng to marry someone of her caliber. She looked at Wang Cheng and then at Wang Chi, paused for a moment, and then opened her clothing slightly, saying, "Are you heading to a survivor gathering point? Can I join you? You don't need to do much for me. Just let me drive along with you. I don't have any supplies to offer, but I'm willing to sleep with you. I'm healthy, so you can rest assured." When did this become a bargaining chip? Wang Cheng sighed inwardly as he looked at Wang Chi, who was staring intently at her. Swallowing hard, Wang Cheng maintained a better mindset, but Wang Chi was different. He was just an ordinary person who had experienced too much life and death that night. With many changes occurring, faced with such a beautiful young woman, whom he had rarely encountered before, Wang Chi felt his heart race. But he knew to keep his composure and lowered his head in silence. He understood that the decision was no longer in his hands, but rather with Wang Cheng. Wang Cheng sighed and said, "I'm going to rest now. Whether she follows or not, it's up to you, Wang Chi. Just don't forget your watch. If something goes wrong, we could all be in danger." Wang Chi was taken aback by these words and stared blankly at Wang Cheng. "Brother Wang, Wang Cheng didn't respond, silently returning to his own vehicle. Seeing Wang Chi, he seemed to see a reflection of himself. Without the system, he probably wouldn't be much better off than Wang Chi. Moreover, he didn't have a bad impression of Wang Chi, so he thought it might be good to help him out. In the future, as fewer people survived, Wang Cheng also thought he should have a few people around him to talk to. Otherwise, even if he was guarding the system and the warship, he would surely feel lonely and go mad. Chapter 68. Strange Creatures. Wang Chi had never done such things before. At first, he felt a bit awkward, but later he made quite a commotion. Even in the soundproof warship, Wang Cheng could faintly hear the noises coming from the car where Wang Chi and the young woman were. He thought to himself that perhaps the young woman wanted to indulge a bit. The apocalypse was so desolate and despairing, as if nothing could help them forget everything and briefly enjoy pure happiness. There were no constraints. They could do so right there on the road in the car. But Wang Cheng was indeed tired. He felt nothing as he listened and soon dozed off. After a while, he was startled awake by the sound of gunfire. His heart remained vigilant. Even while asleep, he never truly felt at ease, waking at the slightest noise. In fact, since the outbreak of the apocalypse, aside from a few peaceful nights at the beginning with Su Xinghai and Zhang Chao in the dormitory, he hadn't slept well at all. By this time, it was completely light outside. The commotion on Wang Chi's side had long since ended, and he was now standing by Wang Cheng's car, pointing in the direction from which the gunfire had come. Wang Chi couldn't open Wang Cheng's car door and could only convey information from outside. Wang Cheng lowered the car window. Wang Chi said, "I just went over there to check. It seems like Zhang Ruijian's people were attacked by something." Wang Chi was quite grateful to Wang Cheng, so he had gone to check early on, hoping to repay Wang Cheng by providing him with first-hand information. Wang Cheng frowned. "Zhang Ruijian is up ahead." After thinking for a moment, he said directly, "Get in the car. Let's go see what's happening over there." As he spoke, Wang Cheng prepared to act, but when he turned around, he found that Wang Chi had not gotten into his car. Instead, he had gotten into the young woman's car and was signaling to Wang Cheng, indicating that they would follow behind him. Wang Cheng was initially amused, but then realized this meant that Wang Chi had become close with the young woman and was intentionally avoiding him. Wang Chi certainly wanted to follow Wang Cheng, but he knew the boundaries. Wang Cheng had secrets that were obvious to anyone, and Wang Chi preferred not to stay in Wang Cheng's car. The less he knew, the better. Wang Cheng didn't say much. This actually made things easier for him as he cleared the way ahead. The woman's red Mazda followed closely behind. Around them, a few scattered survivors had come along, all of whom had joined them yesterday. Wang Cheng glanced at them but didn't care. They could follow if they wanted to. It wouldn't delay anything, and if something happened, he could just make a quick escape without getting involved. However, Wang Chung kept his speed very low, gradually approaching the direction of the gunfire ahead. The first thing he saw was a military armored vehicle parked outside. It turned out that Zhang Rui's group had spent the night resting at a Western restaurant not far ahead of Wang Chung. If he moved a bit further, he might encounter them. Without the burden of a large number of survivors, Zhang Rui's group's marching speed was still quite fast. They had about 30 warriors and over 20 survivors, which was the ideal scale. However, they were also ambushed here. In fact, the attack happened right in the restaurant, where a highly agile and bizarre mutated creature went on a rampage, slaughtering everyone, because it was mixed in with the military and the survivors. The armored vehicles outside roared to life, but dared not open fire. Doing so would surely cause friendly fire. As Wang Chung drove closer, he saw a humanoid, blood-red bizarre creature wreaking havoc in the restaurant. Its speed, strength, and defenses were terrifying. The military soldier's bullets swept after it, but couldn't hit its body. It leaped around the restaurant, sometimes bouncing between tables, sometimes clinging to the high walls like a gecko, rapidly climbing. When it got above one soldier, it leaped down. And even in a close-range firing situation, the most it left behind were a few bullet holes in its body, which didn't stop it at all. Its long, sharp arms slashed through, directly decapitating that soldier. Blood splattered everywhere, and by the time the others reacted, it had already pounced on another target. In the room, with a dozen soldiers present, they couldn't do anything to it. Zhang Rui was furious. This was a tremendous humiliation in his military career, being suppressed by a terrifying monster while it slaughtered numerous survivors and soldiers. They couldn't do anything to eliminate it. He took the initiative to step forward, drawing the mutated creature's attention. At the moment the creature lunged at him, a military awakener, who had long been lying in ambush, suddenly emerged, spewing flames from both hands. A terrifying blaze engulfed the creature. However, it seemed unafraid of fire. Its blood-red, sharp claws pierced through the flames and instantly stabbed the military awakener clean through, directly ripping out his heart. The awakener showed a look of disbelief as he fell backward with a thud, while the creature stood proudly, slowly turning its head. Its eyes fixed on Zhang Rui on the ground. It truly looked remarkably similar to a human, with a slender body and a contorted shape, as if it were a mutated female. Its entire form was drenched in blood, with protruding bones and flesh growing all over, sharp claws. And even its head was wrapped in writhing flesh, revealing only a pair of blood-red eyes that appeared extremely terrifying. Blood flowed from its body, and it was impossible to tell how many lives it had taken. Zhang Rui's breathing momentarily paused. Under its gaze, he felt a chill creeping in, but there was no fear in his heart. He crawled backward, his hand quietly reaching for a grenade tucked at his back. A look of mad determination shone in his eyes. As long as this monster dared to pounce on him, he would fight to restrain its body and detonate the grenade. He didn't believe that at such a close distance, the explosion would fail to take down the creature. As long as it had flesh and blood, it would surely die. Suddenly, the strange creature sprang into action, but instead of lunging at Zhang Rui's hand, it leaped backward with great force, accompanied by a loud crash. A black sedan that Zhang Rui's hen found very familiar burst through a side window and crashed in. If the creature had been a second slower, it would have been hit and thrown away. Following that, the car door swung open, and Wang Chung collapsed out, shotgun in hand, firing wildly at the creature. Upon seeing Wang Chung, Zhang Rui's hen was taken aback and exclaimed, "It's you?" The creature was incredibly fast, outpacing even well-trained soldiers, but Wang Cheng's agility had been enhanced, and his shotgun fire managed to briefly suppress it. Leaning against the car, Wang Chung fired steadily as the creature circled to escape. The surrounding soldiers were astonished, all thinking the same thing. Who is this person? He suppressed that monster with a single move? Despite being momentarily suppressed, the creature had no intention of fleeing. Instead, it circled the edge of the restaurant and suddenly leaped to the ceiling, climbing at high speed like a spider, quickly closing the distance to Wang Chung. However, it seemed Wang Chung had anticipated this. He instantly dropped the shotgun, knowing the creature's speed was beyond what even awakened individuals could react to, but with his enhancements, he was able to respond. He raised his hand in an instant, and a line of fire erupted, directly piercing through. Within just a few breaths, Wang Chung had revealed all his cards, his expression filled with unprecedented seriousness and caution. Just moments ago, when he approached the restaurant and discovered the strange creature, he had received a system notification unlike any other. High-threat intelligent high-energy organism detected. It is advised that the host immediately eliminate it. Killing the current high-energy organism will reward the host with a Level 1 Black Technology Resource Package. This was an unprecedented system notification, with rewards unheard of. But most importantly, it indicated a high threat level and intelligence. Did this strange creature possess intelligence? Wang Chung did not dare to be reckless, nor did he hesitate. He charged out immediately, launching a series of attacks. The shotgun and the collisions in front were mere feints. His real killing move was the thunderous blast he unleashed at that moment. At close range, this blast erupted, instantly hitting its target. The terrifying explosion and flames erupted inside the restaurant, sending the strange creature flying out like a broken kite. Chapter 69. High-tech resource pack. The bizarre mutated creature was sent tumbling out, crashing through the wall behind it, scattering debris everywhere as it fell onto the street outside. Its body was engulfed in flames, yet it still did not die, letting out a frantic, piercing scream as it staggered toward the side of the street. At that moment, it was finally isolated. The armored vehicle outside roared to life, and the autocannon turret turned its position, the dark barrel locking onto the direction of the mutated creature. The 20mm autocannon was more than capable of tearing it apart. Unfortunately, the operator of the autocannon failed to fire. A figure stood in front of the barrel. It was Wang Chung. What a joke. He had worked hard to wound it. If the military claimed its head, his resource pack would be in jeopardy. Therefore, Wang Chung rushed out immediately, positioning himself between the strange creature and the armored vehicle, shaking his head to block the firing path. Behind him, Zhang Rui also chased out, saying, "Don't fire." At this time, Wang Chung was already in pursuit. Ahead, the strange creature was running wildly down the deserted street, its appearance utterly tragic, engulfed in flames. With one arm blown off, it rolled and dashed forward, letting out a heart-wrenching wail that sent chills down one's spine. In that moment, it no longer bore the arrogance and ferocity it had exhibited during its rampage in the restaurant. Instead, it was filled with the same despair and pain as those dying humans. Yet, it had not run very far. Wang Chung followed closely behind, firing a loaded shotgun. And with a loud bang, the creature was knocked down to the ground. Still unwilling to give up, flames engulfing its body, it attempted to crawl toward a certain direction after falling, wailing mournfully. Its tenacity was astonishing. Wang Chung fired again. With the second shot, the creature finally halted its movements. No longer crawling, but it still had not completely died. Its chest heaved, and the flames on its body gradually began to dim. Wang Chung caught up from behind, stepping on it. The heat was intense. Even with shoes on, he could feel the searing temperature radiating from its body. Wang Chung fixed his gaze on it, pressing the gun barrel against its charred head, and asked, "Are you an intelligent life form?" Wang Chung felt that the use of the term intelligent life within the system likely indicated that the intelligence of the entity was comparable to that of humans. Otherwise, the system would not have mentioned it before, such as with the previously encountered mutated giant bird, which also possessed intelligence, but was much stronger than the mutants and was referred to by the system merely as a high-energy organism. This time, however, it was different. Therefore, Wang Chung deliberately avoided attacking the creature's head and vital points, instead focusing on its lower body, almost destroying it to limit its movement. He came forward to ask a few questions. While Wang Chung was indeed motivated by the resource package reward that the system had never mentioned, he also wanted to clarify what this intelligent high-energy organism meant. The apocalypse had not even lasted a month. Could it be that mutated creatures had developed intelligence? The strange creature before him appeared human-shaped, clearly a result of human mutation. So, had the mutants evolved multiple times to gain intelligence? As Wang Chung pondered this, the creature, with only one blood-red eye remaining, showed a hint of surprise. It then opened its mouth and emitted a series of sinister chuckles. Its throat was damaged, but one could faintly discern a female voice. "Ha ha ha, we will remember your scent. We will kill you. Just wait, you won't live for many days." Its eyes revealed a frenzied hatred. It made an effort to reach out and claw at Wang Chung. Bang! Before its arm could touch him, Wang Chung fired directly, blowing its head off. Blood and tissue splattered everywhere. After being burned and shot multiple times, the strange creature's body was already battered and torn apart, unrecognizable. A chill surged in Wang Cheng's heart because it was indeed an intelligent being. It could understand what he was saying and even converse with him. At that moment, the system notification sounded again. High-threat intelligent high-energy organism detected. Immediate execution recommended. Killing the current high-energy organism will reward the host with a level 1 black technology resource package. Wang Chung instinctively looked up in the direction where the strange life form had desperately fled. On the rooftop of a nearby residential building stood a towering figure that bore some resemblance to it. This was a similar creature, but with obvious male characteristics. Robust and strong, standing like a wall, exuding an overwhelming sense of pressure. It also possessed a pair of blood-red eyes, and white scales grew from its flesh. It coldly stared at Wang Chung, its gaze filled with murderous intent. "It has locked onto me." A strong chill gripped Wang Cheng's heart. At that moment, the military also spotted it. Nearby armored vehicles opened fire, and the 20mm cannons shredded the rooftop of the building in an instant, debris flying everywhere. The massive and agile figure leaped and quickly vanished into the smoke and dust. "Dear host, You have successfully hunted down the current high-threat intelligent energy creature, gaining 10 energy points and 1 level 1 black technology resource pack. You have a level 1 black technology resource pack. Would you like to open it? The system prompt brought Wang Chung back to reality. He took a deep breath. That strange male creature was clearly targeting him. But so what? With a flesh and blood body. Could it really compete with his battleship? You came here, and now you're just delivering a resource pack to me. Wang Chung calmed down and chose to open his black technology resource pack directly. He was somewhat excited, wondering what this resource pack contained and what he might obtain. Resource pack opening. Congratulations, you have opened a level 1 black technology resource pack, gaining 10 energy points and 3 doses of nano-intelligent medicine. Nano-intelligent medicine. Each dose contains 500 microscopic nanobots that can work quickly within the user's body to eliminate and kill all harmful factors, such as bacteria, viruses, and cancer cells. It can also help the patient quickly stop bleeding in case of severe injuries. Would you like to take 3 doses of nano-intelligent medicine? Printing will require 6 energy points, 2 energy points per dose, gaining 10 energy points. Wang Chung felt somewhat indifferent, even feeling like it was a bit underwhelming. However, upon seeing the nano-intelligent medicine, Wang Chung showed a look of surprise. This was actually a nano-miracle drug, fully equipped with nanobots. It could target and eliminate viruses and bacteria. With this, if he fell ill during the apocalypse, just 1 dose could cure him. And it could even help with severe injuries like stopping bleeding from amputations. Moreover, this medicine could even kill cancer cells. If this had existed before the apocalypse, Wang Chung believed that having just 2 doses could make him wealthy. Of course, it also meant that he might attract unwanted attention and get captured. Print it. Print it now. Dear host, 6 energy points have been deducted, and printing is in progress. The printing will occur on your battleship, and it is expected to take 6 minutes. Please check back later. This black technology resource pack, besides the energy points, actually produced a black technology creation. Although this nano-intelligent medicine is not a weapon, it is still incredibly useful. In a post-apocalyptic world, who can guarantee they won't get injured? With this, it is worth a whole truckload of medicines. Black technology for disease elimination. This is the thrill of opening a blind box. Wang Cheng's eyes sparkled with anticipation. He even wished he could open another one immediately. He even thought to himself, why didn't that guy kill him earlier? Otherwise, he might have been able to open another resource pack right now. However, at this moment, Wang Cheng couldn't check on the 3 black technology pills in his battleship because Zhang Ruizhen was approaching him. The look in Captain Zhang's eyes as he gazed at Wang Cheng underwent a noticeable change. Chapter 70. I want an RPG. It was difficult to articulate Zhang Ruizhen's surprise. Earlier, when he first met Wang Chung and his own team, he was just inquiring about the aircraft and had a decent impression of him. Later, he learned that this young man was a powerful awakener, which made him look at Wang Chung with even more respect. However, he never expected that this young man would emerge at a critical moment, not only saving his life, but also defeating that incredibly agile and terrifying creature on the spot. Such strength and courage made Zhang Ruizhen somewhat admire him. If the other party had a military background, it would be understandable. But this young man was clearly an ordinary survivor. When he approached Wang Chung, Zhang Ruizhen didn't say anything but extended his hand for a firm handshake. The complexity of his expression left Wang Chung a bit puzzled, wondering what this Captain Zhang was up to. Then Zhang Ruizhen said, "Thank you, little brother. I remember your name is Wang Chung, right? Truly, heroes emerge from youth. If it weren't for you, I might have had to find a way to perish together with that monster just now." Wang Chung was taken aback by this and replied earnestly, "This is what I should do. You were taking the survivors to escape, and when I could help, I had to step in. It's my duty." Wang Cheng's quick action was partly due to the resources from the system, but also, as he said, he couldn't just stand by and let Captain Zhang die like that. He had always had a good impression of the military, especially of Zhang Ruizhen, who was a steadfast soldier and also adaptable, a very good officer. Moreover, Wang Chung understood a principle: where there is no shelter, there can be no unbroken eggs. He had not yet grown strong enough and wanted to survive in this apocalypse to gain time for development, regardless of whether he ultimately chose to cooperate with the military. He could not allow the military's strength to diminish little by little, or else his own space for growth and opportunities would be reduced as well. Wang Cheng understood this point. Zhang Ruizhen shook his head. "That's a different matter. This time, consider it as I owe you a life. You can make 2 requests of me. As long as they do not violate principles, harm others, or damage our unit's interests, I can agree to them. And I will do my utmost to help you fulfill them." Zhang Ruizhen was serious. After saying that, he paused slightly and added, "Of course. You don't have to tell me both requests right now. Whenever you feel like saying them, as long as I'm still alive, you can come to me anytime." Wang Chung saw Zhang Ruizhen's sincerity, his eyes flickered, and he cleared his throat, saying, "I have one idea right now, but I'm not sure if I should say it." Zhang Ruizhen was momentarily taken aback and replied, "Go ahead, I'm listening." Wang Cheng candidly said, "I don't lack supplies or medicine, but I do lack weapons. I want an RPG, a rocket launcher." Wang Cheng went straight for it. He had wanted a rocket launcher for a long time. Although his battleship had missile launchers, who would complain about having too much firepower? His battleship currently had a rifle as a machine gun, but there was still an empty weapon module, and he had been hesitating to install anything because he wanted a rocket launcher, one cannon and one gun. Now that's the perfect combination. Although he has missiles, they can't be deployed in non-flight mode, and he can only use the onboard weapon module, such as a rifle. If he could equip a rocket launcher, it would be a significant upgrade. However, obtaining a rocket launcher from other survivors is quite difficult, and finding one on the battlefield is even harder. Even if one could be found, it would likely be damaged. The best approach is to request one directly from the military. Upon hearing this request, Zhang Ruizhen was momentarily stunned, then chuckled. "You kid, you truly are someone I admire. If it were anyone else, upon hearing me agree to two requests, they would definitely ask me to ensure their safety and provide them with supplies. But you actually want a rocket launcher?" Zhang Ruizhen was straightforward, and Wang Cheng was equally candid, honestly replying, "It's better to rely on oneself than on others. Having my own firepower is more useful than depending on someone else for protection." Zhang Ruizhen was taken aback by this and patted Wang Cheng on the shoulder, saying, "Very good. I admire your mindset. No wonder you have such strength. I just mentioned that you can make any requests regarding those two conditions. But providing you with a rocket launcher is a matter of principle." With that, he fell into deep thought. Wang Cheng understood this well and felt a bit regretful, saying, "It's really difficult, Captain Zhang. You don't have to." Before he could finish, he was interrupted by Zhang Ruizhen waving his hand. The captain said, "I promised you, so I have to follow through. Besides, didn't you join my convoy survivor self-defense team? Would you be willing to join the survivor combat group at the Haicheng gathering point? If you agree, I can speak to the higher-ups and, through the proper channels, secure a rocket launcher for you. Additionally, I can apply for a double-barreled rocket launcher. How does that sound?" Wang Cheng narrowed his eyes, replying, "Captain Zhang, I'm not foolish. You're trying to tie me to your battle vehicle, aren't you?" Zhang Ruizhen laughed heartily and said, "That's indeed unavoidable. I can provide you with any other supplies you need, but not this powerful weapon. Moreover, I admit I have my own intentions. I hope to recruit someone with your talent. The situation in Haicheng is precarious, and your joining us would also benefit yourself. The military will not treat the survivors poorly. I can guarantee you that." Although Wang Cheng verbally expressed hesitation, he understood that there was no selfish motive behind Zhang Ruizhen's actions. Even if he wanted to tie Wang Cheng to the military's vehicle, it was in consideration of the larger picture for Haicheng and the military. Wang Cheng wasn't prepared to refuse. He had already experienced the benefits of working alongside the military during their joint operations, and this could only be advantageous for him. There was no reason to turn it down. However, he did have some reservations, thinking, a double-barreled rocket launcher sounds good, but the ammo consumption must be significant. If I fire 2 shots and run out, that wouldn't be ideal. If the survivor combat group doesn't supply me later, Zhang Rui's face twitched, and he said, "You brat. Good, if you run out and others don't supply you, come to me, my troops will supply you. Kid, you remind me a bit of a certain character." Wang Cheng chuckled. "Well, since that's the case, I'm willing to join. I also need to go to the survivor gathering point in Haicheng to find my friends. By the way, this is my second request to trouble Captain Zhang. I know you mentioned before that you lost 2 friends, right? They are with one of our units." Before Wang Cheng could finish, Zhang Rui took the initiative to continue, saying, "For those 2 people, write down their names and characteristics, as well as the characteristics of the unit they are with, and give it to me. I'll help you find them. This is what I should do, so it doesn't count as your second request. Think about your second request before you bring it up." Wang Cheng was slightly taken aback and replied, "Thank you, Captain Zhang." Last time, Captain Zhang had barely mentioned this matter, but this time he took the initiative to help Wang Cheng find his friends. The change in attitude was quite significant. Wang Cheng felt a mix of emotions. Their conversation didn't take too long, and soon the convoy was back on the road. Zhang Rui's unit followed the same old pattern, continuously merging with other units and gathering survivors as they moved forward. Wang Qi and the beautiful young woman were still driving behind, and Wang Cheng's actions this time earned him the respect of everyone. The soldiers in the convoy were also quite polite to Wang Qi and the others, which left them both a bit surprised. Back in the vehicle, Wang Cheng first checked the nano pills. They were silver round balls, similar to vitamin C, but gave off a shiny, technological vibe. These were treasures, considered to be panaceas. Wang Cheng carefully stored the 3 pills in a bottle and kept them close. Not long after, Zhang Rui happily sent over a dual-barrel rocket launcher for Wang Cheng. Chapter 71, Temporary Survivor Base in Haicheng. The dual-barrel rocket launcher has 2 tubes and can load 2 shells at once, making it a new type of individual equipment. Zhang Rui was very reliable and promised to get this for Wang Cheng right away. There was also a heavy box of shells inside, containing 6 high-explosive rockets. Even without the shells, just holding the rocket launcher in hand felt heavy. Even for Wang Cheng, it had a substantial weight. Concerned that Wang Cheng might not know how to use it, Zhang Rui personally found a soldier to instruct him on its operation. In fact, Wang Cheng didn't need to learn how to use it because he didn't plan to operate the dual-barrel rocket launcher manually. It was meant for installation on a warship. However, knowledge is always beneficial, so Wang Cheng still took the time to learn the basics before returning to his warship. Taking advantage of the opportunity while Zhang Rui's unit was resting, he immediately began to install the rocket launcher. The entire process was as simple and convenient as before. Wang Cheng only needed to place the rocket launcher inside, wait for a moment, and then the battleship and system sent notifications informing him that the rocket launcher had been successfully uploaded and bound to the battleship. At this moment, the 2 autonomous weapon modules of Wang Cheng's secondary battleship had also completed the loading of their weaponry, one side equipped with rifles and the other with rocket launchers. Wang Cheng loaded all 6 rocket shells into the battleship, instantly maxing out its ammunition capacity. At this point, Wang Cheng's battleship could be considered a mobile heavy firepower vehicle. Completing all this made Wang Cheng feel a sense of calm. Indeed, all fears stemmed from insufficient firepower. With the enhancement of firepower, a sense of security naturally followed. After finishing the loading, Wang Cheng stepped out of the battleship and found Wang Qi, briefly updating him on the situation. He said, "Once we get there, I will meet up with my roommate, and then I should be joining the military survivor team. You can follow me to the military. And when we reach the survivor gathering point, you can choose whether to continue acting with us or join other survivors." When mentioning you all, Wang Cheng deliberately glanced at the beautiful woman beside Wang Qi. Their relationship seemed to be progressing quickly, as she was closely following Wang Qi, appearing to rely on him. Wang Qi, feeling nervous, immediately responded, "I'll follow you, Brother Wang. Wherever you go, I will go too. Don't worry. I will do my best to help and not be a burden. No rush. You can decide later," Wang Cheng said before turning to leave. Returning to the vehicle to rest, he felt a wave of fatigue, a side effect of using his fire abilities. Although the fire ability was incredibly powerful, far exceeding that of ordinary awakeners, it seemed to take a serious toll on the body. After using it twice within 24 hours, Wang Cheng felt somewhat dizzy, almost like experiencing a sage mode. Meanwhile, their brief rest ended. Zhang Ruizhen and his team arranged the bodies of their fallen comrades in a row, igniting a large fire for cremation. The surviving soldiers stood in a line, silently saluting. In such a brutal era, having comrades to recover the bodies was already a good outcome. Once everything concluded, Wang Cheng approached Zhang Ruizhen again to discuss the earlier encounter with the strange creature. Zhang Ruizhen, surprised, showed a serious expression and said, "I also noticed that the monster was unusual. I will report this to the Haiqing command post as soon as possible." This is very important news. Wang Cheng could only play this role in the situation. Their convoy soon hit the road again, heading towards the survivor gathering point located in the East District of Haiqing. Haiqing was a first-tier city with a large area. One district could rival some smaller prefecture-level cities. The Haiqing University, which Wang Cheng attended, was diagonally opposite the East District, thus making the East District almost a blind spot for Wang Cheng's previous activities. As he rarely operated in that area, he was not familiar with this place and could only unfold the map while following the advance of Zhang Ruizhen's unit. After a series of changes, their overall troop size had significantly decreased, which instead granted them greater mobility and operational capability, allowing them to move quickly through the urban area. Upon entering the Eastern District, Wang Cheng realized that this seemed to be the main battlefield between the military and the mutated creatures, as well as the first front line for survivors gathering and fleeing. The streets they passed through in the Eastern District were almost entirely clogged with vehicles, private cars, military vehicles, filling the roads. The streets were strewn with the corpses of monsters and humans, along with numerous bullet holes and traces of explosions. While flames in some areas had yet to be extinguished, the scene of the devastated city unfolded before Wang Cheng's eyes. However, Zhang Ruizhen and his team seemed to have long been accustomed to such sights. The armored vehicles aggressively cleared the way, smashing through any obstacles, leading the entire convoy forward. When mutated creatures attacked from around, they immediately turned their guns to shoot them down. Wang Cheng's stamina gradually recovered, and the feeling of fatigue faded. He also took the opportunity to fire his weapon, claiming it was to contribute his strength, while in reality, he was using this chance to collect energy points. To his surprise, this action earned him even more respect. Survivors like Wang Cheng, who were enthusiastic about fighting against the mutated creatures, were rare. As they journeyed, the soldiers' gazes towards Wang Cheng visibly softened. This was beneficial for Wang Cheng, as he could conveniently request ammunition when it ran low. The only downside was that being part of the military convoy meant Wang Chung could not activate the various functions of his warship. For example, he could not test the newly installed rocket launcher here, as it would surely attract the attention of the soldiers and even Zhang Rui's. While he could laugh off inquiries from other survivors and walk away, it would be challenging to do the same with the military. Wang Cheng's plan was to wait until they reached the temporary survivor gathering point in Haicheng, where he would meet up with Su Xinghai and others, and then join the military-organized survivor self-defense team. After that, he would observe the military's attitude towards special awakened individuals like themselves before making further judgments. This matter had to be handled with caution. If done well, they might gain the military's assistance, soaring to new heights, but if mishandled, it could very likely lead to Wang Chung tying his own hands and harming himself. During this apocalyptic time, Wang Chung had learned an important lesson, that everything must be viewed dialectically. While there are benefits, one must also recognize the drawbacks. Otherwise, it would be digging one's own grave. As they continued on their journey, they indeed faced danger without peril. As they approached the temporary survivor gathering point in Haicheng, the number of military personnel on the road noticeably increased, easing their pressure and allowing them to move faster. Wang Chung also saw what was referred to as the survivor self-defense team. It seemed to be a group of awakened individuals, composed of 12 members, working alongside 6 soldiers to carry out rescue missions, and they happened to cross paths with Wang Chung and his group, participating in the same efforts. The awakened individuals clearly possess considerable experience and exceptional strength, matching the capabilities of military fighters. However, their abilities seem to fall into a few categories, either fire, ice, or water, like that of Su Xinghai. It appears that the powers of the awakened are largely confined to these types. The leader of their group, a well-built male with artistic long hair tied behind him, takes the lead using fire-based abilities, which are evidently more powerful than those of ordinary awakened individuals. He can even imbue a flying disc with flames and launch it at high speed to strike monsters. A small soldier with a good relationship with Wang Chung quietly introduced. That's Xinghai, known as the first-level awakened who is closest to a second-level awakened. He is quite powerful and one of the top figures in the survivor self-defense team. No wonder his abilities are noticeably stronger than those of typical awakened individuals. Wang Chung took a closer look at Xinghai, memorizing his face. After merging their rescue teams, there was little interaction between the two sides. In the chaos of the apocalypse, it wasn't a time for pleasantries. After the merger, they quickly advanced on their respective paths. They covered several kilometers from morning until afternoon and finally arrived at the temporary survivor gathering point in Haicheng at dusk. Upon arrival, Wang Cheng's first impression was, so many people. Chapter 72. Farewell Su Xinghai. This temporary survivor base was established in a large commercial complex belonging to the Dongqing District's Dahuan Group. After the military captured the area and cleared out several mutated creatures from nearby neighborhoods, they set up this temporary gathering point for survivors. The entire survivor gathering point had 4 checkpoints, surrounded by makeshift barbed wire. Armed military personnel guarded the area, while mutated creatures occasionally appeared, drawn by the large number of living humans gathered here, launching frenzied attacks. The military clearly lacked the resources to construct a comprehensive wall quickly, so they had to increase personnel to prevent the monsters from breaching their defenses. Wang Chung noticed that among the guards, there were also many individuals who were clearly survivors. As the apocalypse dragged on, the military suffered heavy losses and had to recruit a large number of survivors to fill the manpower shortages. From this vantage point, not only were the outskirts crowded with people, but even inside the survivor base, there were individuals everywhere. Although the military had opened the commercial complex and some surrounding residential buildings for accommodation, as more and more survivors gathered, not everyone could find shelter inside, and many had to sleep outdoors. However, Wang Chung hadn't seen so many people in a long time, over 100,000, bustling together. Even before officially entering, he could see figures near and far. Survivors and military vehicles intermingled, and the air was tinged with a faint sense of despair typical of the apocalypse. Long lines formed at several checkpoints. Even military vehicles had to queue for inspection before being allowed to enter. This is to prevent any creatures from entering the vehicle. Once a mutant gets into the survivor base, it will surely cause a massive infection with its frenzied biting. However, the entire process is quite fast. In less than half an hour, Wang Chung entered the survivor base in Haicheng with Zhang Rui's convoy. Thanks to being with the military convoy and having Zhang Rui's guarantee, the supplies in Wang Cheng's vehicle were inspected without any hassle or deductions and were easily allowed to pass. Wang Chung noticed that the supplies of other ordinary survivors had to undergo redistribution, which was managed by the military. Wang Chung couldn't help but sigh. This is the difference between having connections and not. From this point on, their convoy began to split up. Ordinary survivors were led by volunteers to the accommodation area in the survivor gathering point to rest, while Zhang Rui's and others returned to their station base for a short break. However, this wouldn't take long. The current situation was tense, and conditions in the urban area of Haicheng were deteriorating. They needed to set off again as soon as possible to rescue survivors. Zhang Ruizen also helped Wang Cheng by sending a small soldier named Zhao Nan, who was a rookie but familiar with the situation at the gathering point. He knew some of the right people and would take Wang Cheng to report to the survivor self-defense team. Additionally, he mentioned that he had found Wang Cheng's two friends, and Zhao would help guide him. Zhao Nan appeared youthful, around the same age as Wang Cheng, but he was very friendly and kept smiling. He said, "Your two brothers are with our brother unit and arrived here yesterday. Coincidentally, they also joined the survivor self-defense team. I'll take you to meet them." He got into Wang Cheng's vehicle and directed him, followed closely by a red Mazda carrying Wang Qi and a beautiful young woman. This was Wang Qi's final decision. He wanted to join the self-defense team alongside Wang Cheng. Wang Cheng felt both surprised, and it made sense. Wang Qi was growing rapidly. As they passed through the temporary gathering point, Wang Cheng saw scenes he had never witnessed before. The streets were filled with people. Disheveled survivors crowded the streets and alleys. This area, which could accommodate over 100,000 people, had long exceeded its maximum capacity, with many forced to sleep on the streets. The military lacked the manpower and resources to build temporary shelters for them. Everywhere, there were desperate figures, some sitting on dark blankets, motionless, staring blankly at the passing people and vehicles, their faces filled with confusion and despair. Some even had no blankets and lay on the hard ground, while the injured and sick had nowhere to go and also had to sleep on the streets. Most people appear disheveled, and the spark of life and enthusiasm they once had before the end is gone. Many are merely existing like walking corpses. Yet even so, they are better off than many others, especially compared to those still trapped in the chaos, living in a daze. At least they do not have to worry about being taken away by unknown monsters. It's hard to imagine that about a month ago, this city was thriving, with everyone living comfortably and mostly concerned about their studies and careers. Now, even the most basic survival has become a problem. The framework of civilization that humanity painstakingly built over long years has collapsed and vanished in such a short time. Wang Cheng sighed at this scene and said, "What are our plans going forward? How will these people be settled in the future?" "I don't know, and even if I did, I can't say," Zhao Nan replied. He was kind but disciplined, never speaking about military operations. "You can rest assured that as awakened individuals and members of the self-defense force, we will arrange accommodations for you. When the time comes, you and your two companions can meet up, and the four of you will have a room to yourselves." Wang Cheng nodded. At such times, those inside the gathering point were happier than those outside. Those who had a place to stay were better off than those who did not. Zhang Ruizen had indeed given Wang Cheng a heads up. He admired Wang Cheng and wanted to keep him in the military, so he wouldn't let any trivial issues arise. Zhao Nan led Wang Cheng and Wang Qi through the process of registering with the self-defense force without any hindrances. And then Wang Cheng followed Zhao Nan into a gated community. One of the buildings here was specifically designated for survivors and members of the self-defense force. "Don't worry, since you are willing to help, we will provide you with housing, basic food security, and weapons and ammunition. Of course, it won't be too much. But I must make it clear on behalf of Captain Zhang. The weapons are for fighting mutated creatures. If anyone commits wrongdoing, bullies others, or harms or kills someone, they will be dealt with by immediate execution in this emergency." Zhao Nan's rare seriousness showed. His military uniform served as a pass, and the survivors they encountered along the way made way for them. He led Wang Cheng and the others upward, stopping at room 506 on the 5th floor. Knocking on the door, the person who opened it was none other than Su Xinghai, whom he hadn't seen for many days. Seeing Wang Cheng at the door, Su Xinghai was surprised and immediately showed joy, giving Wang Cheng a bear hug. "That's great. I knew you would be okay. I'm so glad." Zhang Chao also peeked out from inside, displaying a happy expression. Seeing that they were fine eased Wang Cheng's heart significantly. However, they were not the only ones in the room. This 506 is just a normal residential apartment, a one-bedroom unit with a total area of about 45 square meters. However, it is currently home to 7 people, and with more arriving, the others in the room are getting up, looking out with furrowed brows, clearly feeling that the space is insufficient. A one-bedroom unit housing 7 people is undeniably cramped. Wang Cheng took a glance and frowned as well. He had heard from Su Xinghai and Zhang Chao that both of them were sleeping on the floor. The other 5 had already claimed the sofas and beds, leaving Su Xinghai and his companion to sleep on the floor near the door to avoid offending anyone. It was precisely because of this that they were the first to answer the door when someone knocked. This was clearly a case of newcomers being bullied by those who arrived earlier. It's a common situation, first come, first served. However, Wang Cheng frowned deeply. While he could overlook the others, he felt uneasy knowing that his brothers, Su Xinghai and Zhang Chao, were being mistreated. Before Wang Cheng could say anything, Zhao Nan had already stepped forward, taking the initiative to ask the others to leave, entirely clearing the one-bedroom unit for Wang Cheng and his group. This was not only a favor from Zhang Rui's end to Wang Cheng, but also aligned with the established rules. On the way there, Wang Cheng had heard Zhao mention that room assignments were based on a humane principle, aiming to keep those who arrive together in the same space, with awakeners receiving preferential treatment. If a team had 2 awakeners, they were entitled to a room for the whole team. Wang Cheng was an awakener, and so was Su Xinghai, which perfectly met the criteria. Of course, meeting the criteria did not guarantee that it would be executed in reality. Without Zhao Nan and Zhang Rui's connections, Wang Cheng would have found it hard to invoke this standard. However, Zhao Nan spoke to those individuals, and although the others in the room wore displeased expressions, they obediently moved their belongings out. At this stage, who would dare offend someone connected to the military? Zhang Chao was somewhat surprised by this. Second brother, you're impressive. We didn't even argue with those guys over the beds and sofas, just because we heard they had military backing. Wow, it seems your connections are even stronger. With just a couple of words, they left with their tails between their legs. Chapter 73. The Invisible Circle. After Zhao Nan left, only Wang Cheng and the 4 men and 1 woman remained in the room, and the atmosphere became somewhat awkward. Wang Cheng suddenly found himself at a loss for how to break the ice when a beautiful young woman introduced herself cheerfully. My name is Yuan Rui. I don't have any combat abilities and rely entirely on you for a place to stay. I want to compete with you for resources, and I eat very little. I'm willing to share part of the supplies allocated to me by the military that I can't consume. If there is any danger, just let me follow you. You don't need to worry about rescuing me. Just let me stay with you. She seemed a bit nervous. She was a smart and brave woman, able to recognize what her current situation meant compared to other survivors. She was eager to stay in this group and immediately began tidying up the room, which was left in disarray after the others left. I can also help you with laundry, tidying up, and treating injuries. I have some medical knowledge. Yuan Rui is also aware that Wang Qi, whom she follows, has little say in matters. At this moment, Wang Qi remains silent, grateful to Wang Cheng. Although he wishes to keep Yuan Rui around, he knows where to draw the line and understands his own position. Wang Cheng, on the other hand, doesn't he mind. His worship is large enough now, and even if he allocates rooms, he will spend most of his time in the vehicle. So, he turns his attention to Su Xinghai and Zhang Chao. He introduces Wang Qi briefly and subtly mentions the relationship between Wang Qi and Yuan Rui. Su Xinghai and Zhang Chao look a bit confused. After a moment of silence, Su Xinghai sighs and says, "It's fine. The 3 of us can sleep inside, and you 2 can stay outside. It's not easy for any of us, so let us help each other." Wang Qi and Yuan Rui show expressions of gratitude. Wang Cheng then exchanges some information with Su Xinghai and the others. Just as Wang Cheng had previously judged, that day they retreated to a supply store, intending to wait for Wang Cheng, but later they were attacked by hordes of mutated creatures, forcing them to relocate. Since then, they lost contact with Wang Cheng, yet they managed to navigate through dangers. Su Xinghai and Zhang Chao had some means of self-protection, and they followed the military all the way here, eventually reuniting with Wang Cheng. Su Xinghai says, after arriving here, we found that this gathering point was barely functioning. If we didn't join the survivor self-defense team, food and shelter would be a problem, which is why we chose to join. It shows that we have some capability. Otherwise, many who wanted to join Wu Ti have had the opportunity. Wang Cheng nods in agreement. Within the survivor gathering point, although there is no life or death struggle, life here is not easy either. Su Xinghai and the others arrived a day earlier but didn't waste time. They basically figured out the situation here. Zhao Nan gave each of them an identification card like a work badge, which they used to participate in operations and collect supplies distributed by the military according to the numbers on their ID cards. When it was time to collect supplies, Su Xinghai took everyone's ID cards and walked out of the room with Wang Cheng, simultaneously introducing the situation here to Wang Cheng. In this complex, there are 3 buildings designated for the survivor self-defense team. The living conditions are similar to theirs, just with more people in larger houses and fewer people in smaller ones. About half of the people are usually drawn out each day. Ordinary survivors mainly assist in defense, while awakened individuals may be responsible for some combat missions alongside the military. However, the military is quite considerate. Although they have summoned people like them, they haven't imposed strict requirements. Even participation in combat is predicated on ensuring their safety. As for the people here, Su Xinghai's gaze shifts, looking around. There are quite a few people on both sides pointing at them, probably discussing who sent them and their strong connections. When they notice the gaze directed at them, those people naturally fall silent, retreating to corners or simply going back to their rooms. Wang Cheng rubs his nose, his expression somewhat peculiar. Clearly, he could rely on his strength. So how did he end up being seen as someone with connections? But it doesn't matter. Becoming a part of the influential circle means fewer troubles, which isn't a bad situation. Wang Cheng came here not to stir up trouble with the survivors, but to hitch a ride on the military's fast track and make a significant gain in energy points. The distribution point for supplies was right at the entrance of the community, where the military had set up several tables to allocate resources. Each person was to receive a bag of instant noodles and a sausage. By the time they arrived, there was already a long line, with other survivors outside watching eagerly. Inside and out, it was crowded, and the military even set up a cordon to separate ordinary people from the armed survivors collecting supplies. Su Xinghai explained. The rations we're distributing are relatively better. The ordinary survivors outside get at most a bit of rice soup or noodle soup a day. The military is under strain due to the ongoing conflict and resource shortages, making it difficult to ensure that the tens of thousands gathered here are fed and clothed adequately. Not starving or freezing to death is about all we can manage. At this time, critical supplies are still prioritized for combat personnel. This isn't about favoritism. If the combat personnel can't be fed and clothed, who will protect the safety of the survivor base? However, with military security in place, even if those people were envious, no one dared to act. After all, there was still food available, and it wasn't to the point of starvation. Otherwise, everyone might have to fend for themselves. Of course, the military gathering so many survivors wasn't to let everyone starve here. The line was quite long. When Wang Cheng and his group arrived, there were already several hundred people ahead of them, so they could only wait patiently. Just then, a commotion erupted among the ordinary survivors outside the community. The crowd suddenly parted as several vehicles drove in from the front. Two seven-seater vans, seemingly belonging to the armed survivors, stopped right at the supply distribution point without forming a line. Two individuals got out, greeted the military personnel, and directly took away 2 boxes of supplies, clearly far exceeding the number of people in the 2 vans, and they didn't even show any identification. Wang Cheng was slightly taken aback when he saw who was inside the vehicles. It was Qin Hai, whom he recognized from their previous journey together. Had he just arrived? Su Xinghai noticed Wang Cheng staring at the 2 vans and assumed he was surprised that these individuals didn't have to queue. He leaned in and said softly, "That's a key figure from the Qinghai Research Institute, surrounded by powerful awakeners, recognized as a top team here. With the institute backing them, they have all the supplies they need and enjoy various preferential benefits." It said he participated in the Institute's first phase of the Awakener Ability Enhancement Experiment and is now the closest to becoming a Level 2 Awakener. Whether he can obtain the universal code for Level 2 breakthroughs depends on him, so this guy is quite a significant figure around here. In special circumstances, those with strength and utility enjoy more resources, and the strong naturally gain more respect during such times. Wang Cheng recalled that he had seen Qin Hai's abilities before. They were indeed more powerful than those of an average awakened individual, but comparable to his own. If it came to overall strength, Wang Cheng felt confident that with his enhancements in strength and speed, he could easily overpower Qin Hai. Not to mention, aboard his battleship, he had a special serum with level 2 strength and 2 level 1 serums that could grant fire abilities. If he wanted, he could easily create 2 awakened individuals with powers similar to Qin Hai's in no time. Su Xinghai continued to explain, "Actually, I only started to figure this out today. Wherever there are people, there are circles, and our survivor self-defense team is no exception. There are invisible circles here as well. Qin Hai and a few other powerful awakened individuals, like Wu Haiqing and Dong Zhigua, are on a similar level. They assist the Research Institute in their studies, which is why they are favored by it. There is also a batch of non-awakened survivors who are said to be connected to some important figures. The ones staying with us today are from that non-awakened side. However, they know we have Captain Zhang behind us, so they shouldn't dare to do anything. Anyway, we haven't done anything to them." After Su Xinghai's reminder, Wang Cheng began to notice that the long queue indeed seemed to be divided into several groups. In this apocalypse, the terrifying disasters were the root cause of the deteriorating situation, and the endless disputes among people were no different. Even a mere survivor self-defense team was so intricately complex. And this temporary gathering point for survivors in Haiqing must be even more turbulent beneath the surface. Wang Cheng realized that Su Xinghai was warning him to be cautious. He nodded but was more curious about another term Su mentioned, the Research Institute. What kind of organization was that? Was it researching awakened individuals? "I'm not very clear about it either," Su Xinghai admitted. "It's an emergency organization formed by the military and government, in collaboration with local researchers. They've set aside a specific area for it, seemingly to study the apocalypse, combat mutated creatures, and research awakened individuals, which I believe is just part of their work." He smiled wryly. "But beyond that, I don't know much. Only awakened individuals at the level of people like Qin Hai receive invitations to cooperate with the Research Institute. I've also heard that the bodies of awakened individuals who die on the battlefield are sent to the Research Institute for dissection and study. Although the idea of dissection research seems like a dark joke, modern medicine is indeed limited. The best way to study the abilities that arise from human mutations is still through dissection." Wang Cheng said, "I see. Have they figured out what exactly is going on with this apocalypse?" This apocalypse had come so abruptly, and even at this point, Wang Chung still wanted to understand the reason behind it all. Unfortunately, Su Xinghai just shook his head. No one knows. It is said that even those above are unaware. There are rumors circulating in the survivor base that it was caused by the cracking of polar ice caps, releasing ancient viruses into the air, triggering global mutations. However, this does not explain why the apocalypse erupted almost simultaneously around the world. Some say we are under attack from extraterrestrials, but there is no evidence for that either. If they could do such a thing, why not just annihilate us directly instead of using this method? Sigh. In any case, the world is in chaos now. It is said that even the local military department and government here are struggling to establish contact with higher authorities. A look of melancholy appeared on Su Xinghai's face. Wang Chung also lowered his head. This sudden apocalypse is a disaster for anyone. Yet, his mind was pondering the words Su Xinghai had just spoken. The framework of the temporary survivor gathering point in Haicheng was gradually becoming clearer in his mind. The military, the government, and research institutions serve as the pillars of the entire temporary survivor gathering point in Haicheng. Entities that the vast majority cannot access, towering existences. It wouldn't be easy for Wang Chung to reach out to them, but a thought struck him. He knew very well that he didn't need to do much. He only needed to deliver a nano pill, and he believed the research institute would come to seek him out. However, Wang Chung did not plan to do so. He realized that his previous thoughts were somewhat naive. He had thought that with a system in hand and having come here, he might seek cooperation from the military or government. The best outcome would undoubtedly be the military helping him accumulate energy points, rapidly upgrading his battleship, while the worst outcome would be him being controlled for investigation, significantly slowing down the upgrade process. But from the current situation, his greatest possibility was to be ignored, or to say that he was far from receiving the level of attention he desired. His battleship and the nano pills might be confiscated. As for the system and upgrades, it was likely that no one would pay attention to him at all. Given the current situation in Haicheng, who could afford to care? In the face of a true deluge, even if one revealed their system and abilities, very few would genuinely take a moment to look at you or listen to what you had to say. Wang Chung realized that he was still trapped in the mindset of a university student, and his thoughts were somewhat naive and childish. Although his battleship was already at level 2, comparable to fighter jets and general light armored tanks, in the face of this impending apocalypse and the vast military and government system, his capabilities were insignificant, and he had no qualifications to engage in dialogue with them, let alone earn their attention. He temporarily suppressed his thoughts of cooperating with the military and decided to focus on enhancing his own strength first. Once his aircraft reached a certain level of upgrade, he would then seek formal cooperation with the military. By then, what he would engage in would be true cooperation, and he would no longer need to worry about good or bad outcomes. Standing among the crowd, Wang Cheng's gaze gradually became resolute. He clearly understands when relying on himself is the best choice. He recalls a saying he came across online a long time ago: the strength found within oneself, when infused back into oneself, will be beneficial for a lifetime. He completely lets go of the idea of depending on external forces, choosing instead to rely on himself. Taking one step at a time, aiming to upgrade from here to a 3rd or even 4th level battleship. After confirming his strength, he plans to go to the capital to bring his parents. These 2 tasks are his most important goals. Not far away, the vehicle of Qin Hai and others slowly drove away. Wang Chung shrank back, no longer intending to reveal his strength, choosing to develop quietly. After a long wait and Su Xinghai's incessant introductions, the long line finally reached the end. Wang Chung and the others successfully received their supplies, and military personnel verified their identification tags for registration. Signing for the supplies was necessary to prevent unauthorized or duplicate claims. In urgent times, resources are scarce. Back in the room, Wang Chung found it hard to sit still. According to Su Xinghai's introduction, under normal circumstances, the military would allocate the survivor self-defense team based on the identification tag numbers, drawing half of the personnel each day to ensure everyone gets a day off every 2 days, maximizing the safety of the survivors. Today was supposed to be a rest day for those with Wang Cheng's identification number. For others, not having to confront mutated creatures directly was naturally the best situation. But Wang Cheng couldn't sit still. He didn't want to waste an entire day. He needed to progress on the path of accumulating energy points. Without involving Su Xinghai and the others, Wang Chung went straight out and inquired with the soldiers on duty nearby. He learned that even if his number wasn't called for defense today, he could still go to the front line. So, he headed straight for the edge of the temporary survivor gathering point in Haicheng, looking for the area with more monsters and signing up with the commander there to join the battle. Upon hearing that Wang Chung had volunteered to fight, the station soldiers were quite surprised. It was rare to find someone with such awareness in the survivor self-defense team. As the situation grew urgent, the iron fence defense line around the temporary survivor gathering point was weak, and with over 100,000 people here, it was like a large cake continuously emitting heat for the monsters. Numerous mutated beings surged from all directions, attacking the defense line. Wang Qing quickly joined the fight, blending into the crowd and hunting fiercely. It was like a game of plants versus zombies. He no longer needed to take too many risks himself, just attacking from behind the defense line. The only issue was that he had to compete with others for kills. Only Wang Qing had the system, so only the mutated beings he personally killed would count as energy points. The same happened the next day, and the day after that. Wang Qing continued to head straight to the front line. As he became more skilled, he also became more adept at securing kills. Wang Qing didn't seek fame, yet his reputation began to spread as a result. It is said that there is a monster-slaying madman in the Survivor Self-Defense Force, who does not take a break even on rest days and goes everywhere looking for monsters to kill. Wherever there are many monsters, he goes there. The key point is that when he kills monsters, he enjoys stealing kills and competing to take them down. While other members of the Survivor Self-Defense Force are trembling with fear against the mutated creatures, afraid of their defenses being breached, this person seems to be playing a game. Completely exhilarated. Hearing this, Wang Qing felt quite frustrated. He didn't want to compete for kills either. But the military's need to maintain stability and the absolute safety of the survivor gathering points meant that there were too many people on the front lines with heavy firepower. If he didn't compete, the energy point earnings would decrease. In just 3 days, Wang Qing's energy points skyrocketed, directly reaching 500. The target for the level 3 battleship was 900 energy points, which was now within reach. As his reputation began to rise, Wang Qing decided it was time to tone it down a bit and take half a day's rest. Of course, during this half day, he didn't plan to be idle. He had a plan to inject Zhang Chao with a vial of flame serum obtained from a mutated bird. Zhang Chao was not an awakened one. Although his marksmanship was improving, the risks of fighting mutated creatures were still higher than for those who were awakened. Anyway, Wang Qing had plenty of serums now and could give Zhang Chao a vial. Moreover, Wang Qing himself was also ready to inject a level 2 power serum. He wanted to see if injecting the level 2 serum could reach the theoretical level of a level 2 awakened individual, as stated by the Research Institute. However, just as Wang Qing found Zhang Chao and was about to give him the injection, there was a knock at their door. It was a stranger, a well-built woman, with an attractive figure and a seemingly innate charm, who said, "Are you Wang Qing? Our Wu Haiqing wants to see you." Wang Qing had not heard this name before and was momentarily taken aback, but then he remembered that it had been mentioned by Su Xinghai earlier. Wu Haiqing was a prominent, awakened individual under the special care of the Research Institute, just like Qin Hai. What could he want to see me for? Wu Haiqing was a mountain of a man, muscular and imposing, with clothes that strained against his bulk. One of his arms was as thick as Wang Qing's thigh, and sitting there, he resembled a small mountain. He occupied a 200 square meter top-floor room with a dozen of his subordinates. The woman who brought Wang Qing here was Wu Haiqing's companion. She sat on Wu Haiqing's lap, leaning against him, creating a striking visual of beauty and beast. Wu Haiqing didn't mind, holding the woman close with his eyes, as big as brass bells, scanning Wang Qing from head to toe, and said, "So you're Wang Qing? You've been making quite a name for yourself these past couple of days. Your shooting is precise, competing with soldiers and survivors to slay monsters. I also heard you're a survivor. I like people like you. I don't like whiny survivors. I didn't bring you here for any other reason. I just want to ask you one thing. Are you willing to follow me?" Wu Haiqing's character matched his robust physique. He was straightforward and direct. His words carried a certain credibility. Because he saw those subordinates outside, Wang Qing also noticed that they all had similar tough guy appearances. However, he roughly guessed Wu Haiqing's intentions. So he replied in a neither servile nor overbearing manner. "Cooperation is fine, but joining is out of the question. Don't misunderstand. I don't mean to provoke you. Otherwise, I wouldn't have come. I have no intention of offending you. I just want to hunt monsters. I don't care about any circles here. Nor do I want to wade through murky waters." This was exactly the purpose of Wang Qing's visit, to refuse outright. Wu Haiqing and the woman sitting on his lap were both taken aback by his words. After a moment, Wu Haiqing burst into laughter. "Huh. Others say you're a lunatic who only knows how to kill monsters, but I find you quite interesting. Good. If anyone else had refused me like that, I would have taught them a lesson myself. But you're interesting. I like you. I appreciate the face you've given me. Of course, if you need anything, feel free to come find me anytime." As Wang Qing left Wu Haiqing, many people looked at him as if he were a lunatic. There was a lot of discussion among them. Did I hear that right? He rejected Wu Ge? Wu Ge is famously protective of his own. Others would break their heads to get in with our boss Wu Ge, yet he actually turned it down? What a big shot. Who does he think he is? Just cooperation? If it were anyone else, as long as they could get him to join us, our boss would probably have them do anything. This guy truly lives up to his reputation for monster hunting. Haven't you heard? This guy is ruthless, while others are grabbing supplies. He is collecting monster kills as if killing monsters guarantees equipment drops. What kind of logic is that? Our boss's combat power is on par with Qin Hai. Besides that woman from the Research Institute, our boss and Qin Hai are the combat power ceiling among the awakened here. How can he not follow such a good person? What is he thinking? In their eyes, Wang Qing's actions were puzzling. A huge opportunity was right in front of him, and he just turned it down? Wang Qing simply smiled at this. To him, it was just a minor episode. He didn't want to stir up trouble, but he wasn't afraid of it either. If Wu Haiqing hadn't given him face just now, Wang Qing naturally had his own means. As for the combat power ceiling, I'll create one for you soon. Back in his room, Wang Qing called Zhang Chao alone and brought him onto the warship. He took out a vial of unknown serum and briefly explained its functions and possible consequences. Upon hearing this, Zhang Chao's eyes widened. So that's it. You injected this back at the hot pot restaurant? Exactly, Wang Qing replied. I know you envy me and Su Xinghai for being awakened. Su Xinghai awakened himself. But I didn't. If you inject it, you can also become awakened. Don't ask where it came from, and I hope this remains a secret. Now, it's time for you to make a choice. Zhang Chao's gaze flickered, excitement evident in his eyes, and he quickly nodded. Inject it? Second brother. I will definitely inject it. Wang Qing said, good. But if you inject it, there's one more thing I need you to do. You can listen first and then make your final decision. To be honest, both my life and the boss's life are thanks to you. Now that you've helped me become an awakened one, feel free to ask me for anything. Wang Qing shook his head and insisted. What I need you to do is to demonstrate your strength after becoming an awakened one, so that you can attract the attention of the Research Institute. With this serum I've injected, I suspect your awakening ability should not be weaker than that of others. At most, you may have fewer chances to use your abilities. Once you use them publicly, you will definitely attract the attention of the Research Institute, and they will invite you to participate in their research. Of course, you can rest assured, I've checked, there's no life-threatening risk involved. The reason I want you to connect with the Research Institute is that I hope you can bring back more useful information. Although we are here, we are completely in the dark about the situation in Haiqing and the larger circumstances. While everyone says the Research Institute is clueless about the apocalypse, I suspect they or the military cannot possibly be completely unaware of it. If you get in and catch the attention of the experts there, I hope. Wang Qing's words were cut off. He did not continue, as his meaning was already very clear. In recent days, Wang Qing had been accumulating energy points in the survivor base in preparation for the journey to Fengtian, but improving strength was only one aspect. As he said, being here made him increasingly blind to the outside world, and he knew almost nothing about the situation in Haiqing. Even if the warship was upgraded to go to Fengtian, without intelligence and information as support, it would be futile. Moreover, Wang Qing was very eager to know what was happening outside, what the root cause of the apocalypse was. Why was the military hardly using the Air Force? What were the high-energy creatures that could not be seen in the sky? Wang Qing had been observing for days and had not seen any planes or helicopters in Haiqing. Further confirming his suspicions, the military's avoidance of using the Air Force in the city must have a reason. They surely knew something. And 80% of the military's information came from the Research Institute. Wang Qing was increasingly anxious these days. The invisible monsters in the clouds and the strange, intelligent, mutated creatures made him feel that this apocalypse seemed merely to be a mutation. But perhaps it was not that simple. The situation was becoming more and more eerie, like a shadow ready to engulf civilization. He wanted to learn more as soon as possible. Otherwise, it would be too late once things spiraled out of control. When the nest is broken, how can the eggs survive? Prepare early. Therefore, Wang Qing was making preparations in advance. Zhang Chao nodded slowly and said, I understand. I know you want to go to Fengtian to get your parents, and you will need information to support that. Leave it to me. With the experience from the last time, Wang Qing was well prepared for this injection as well, waiting until Zhang Chao fully digested it. The entire process went smoothly. Zhang Chao's feelings were similar to Wang Qing's, but his abilities differed from those that Wang Qing had acquired. The ability of Wang Qing is to shoot a line of fire directly from his palm, while Zhang Chao can throw a bursting fireball, roughly the size of a baseball. Its power is similar to Wang Qing's fire line, but on a much smaller scale. Wang Qing's fire line can instantly blow up a car. So if we compare Wang Qing's ability to a rocket, Zhang Chao would be more like a grenade. Of course, this is already quite impressive compared to ordinary flame awakeners. When facing a mutated brown bear, Wang Qing could use 2 fire lines to make it howl in pain, while Zhang Chao might just get crushed. However, Wang Qing's fire line ability can only be used twice in 24 hours, while Zhang Chao can use his ability 7 times in the same period. Wang Qing pondered this. He realized that even with the same special serum, the effects might differ among individuals. After administering the serum to Zhang Chao, night fell. Once Zhang Chao was upstairs, Wang Qing slowly took out a vial of level 2 strength serum from his armored vehicle and injected it. This time, he was in a survivor gathering point. Sitting in a fortified battleship in the dead of night, undisturbed and with no risk at all. A slight smile appeared on Wang Qing's lips as he felt a sense of anticipation. He wondered if injecting this level 2 strength serum would allow him to meet the level 2 Awakener standard set by the research facility. Chapter 76. The clouds in the sky had not moved for a long time. At the outer defense line of the temporary survivor gathering point in the coastal city, Wang Chung leaned against his battleship, wildly firing a rifle sent by the military. On the entire front line, countless soldiers and survivors were firing intensely, the tongues of fire illuminating the battlefield, resembling a scene from a movie. Today, there were even more monsters than before. Looking ahead, Wang Chung saw that the street corner they were responsible for defending was densely packed with mutated creatures, stretching endlessly. Their speed was incredibly fast, charging forward under heavy fire. And even though they had built a tight fire network, it was still insufficient to intercept them completely. Occasionally, some managed to slip through the overlapping fire net, approaching and howling as they launched their attacks. At this moment, the Awakeners played their role. Wu Haiqing took the lead, charging at the forefront. His combat power was not to be underestimated. To Wang Cheng's surprise, Wu Haiqing turned out to be a rare metal ability user. When he attacked, his body shone with golden light, resembling a golden-bodied warrior, yet his methods were brutally fierce, opening and closing like a slaughter god. Those mutated creatures, which could easily tear a person apart, became targets to be ripped apart in front of Wu Haiqing. His physical strength and power clearly exceeded that of ordinary people. After enhancement, he could not only withstand the flesh of mutated creatures, but could even crush them in terms of physical strength and combat ability. His actions became the focal point on the battlefield, and many people shouted his name in support. The enhanced ability itself showcased his bravery and ferocity. Being one of the strongest Awakeners at the survivor gathering point, alongside others like Qin Hai, was not just empty talk. At this moment, a creature whose original shape was completely unrecognizable emerged from the crowd of mutants. It was muscular, 5 meters long, and its entire body was covered in twisted, blood-red, mutated muscles. It charged out at high speed, moving on all fours like a cheetah across the battlefield. Bullets from rifles struck its body but failed to penetrate its flesh. Accompanied by deafening howls and roars, it leaped high, soaring over the low iron fence and crashing into the defensive formation behind, instantly creating chaos and carnage. An ordinary awakened individual who attempted to stop it was effortlessly slashed in half by its blade-like tail, blood and flesh flying everywhere. Wu Haiqing rushed forward with his men, confronting the creature with sheer physical strength, but he was overwhelmed, completely suppressed by its power. He was struck by one of its claws, causing his chest to rip open as he was sent flying, immediately sustaining injuries. Everyone was astonished and instinctively retreated. The creature howled and charged directly toward Wang Chung and his group. The surrounding gunfire intensified as Wang Chung swiftly threw a tactical grenade, rolled to gain momentum, and darted past the beast, delivering a thunderous punch while shouting, "Old 3. Boom. The explosion of the grenade obscured Wang Cheng's figure, and at that moment, he struck with a powerful punch. Enhanced by second-level strength serum, this punch landed squarely on the creature's abdomen. Flesh and blood rolled as Wang Chung almost smashed its belly, sending the creature flying. It crashed to the ground, unable to rise. While Wu Haiqing, known for his strength, was completely overpowered, Wang Cheng's power had decisively crushed the beast. This was the effectiveness of the second-level strength serum. Meanwhile, Zhang Chao coordinated closely, launching fireballs to finish off the creature, ultimately blowing its head apart. The massive body twitched once, and then lay still. Thanks to the cover of the grenade, visually, it appeared as if Wang Cheng's attack had been concealed, making it look like the monster was taken down by the grenade and Zhang Chao's strike. Amidst the chaos of the battlefield, who could investigate what truly happened? At that moment, as the creature wreaked havoc, more mutated beings surged in, and Zhang Chao quickly engaged, showcasing his abilities. In this battle, Zhang Chao shone brightly, demonstrating extraordinary combat prowess as an awakened individual. Wang Qi was surprised, not expecting Zhang Chao to be an awakened one as well. However, Wang Chung and Su Xinghai remained composed, as this was part of their plan to leverage the situation to promote Zhang Chao. As Wang Chung had anticipated, after the battle, both the Research Institute and the military approached Zhang Chao with invitations. Even Wu Haiqing personally visited him, saying, "No wonder, you have 3 awakened individuals and 1 such expert. I see that your brother's flame abilities are not much different from Qin Hai's." His gaze shifted to Wang Chung. Zhang Chao had now become the center of attention, but he still sought out Wang Chung. Wu Haiqing felt that Wang Chung and his group were operating in a peculiar manner, hinting at their extraordinary nature. After a moment of silence, he said, "I heard you are new here. If there's anything you don't understand or need help with, feel free to ask me. I'm happy to make your acquaintance." Wu Haiqing's tone changed quickly. Last time, he was considering recruiting Wang Chung as a subordinate, but this time he took the initiative to befriend him and offer help. This reflects the difference between having power and not having it. Wang Chung indeed needed Wu Haiqing's assistance, and he didn't hold back, directly stating, "I actually have one thing. If you're willing to help, that would be great. I need to buy fuel." Wang Cheng's warship consumed a lot of fuel, and the military supplies allocated to them did not include fossil fuels. Purchasing from other survivors yielded very little at a time. Since Wu Haiqing was familiar with the area and took the initiative, Wang Chung expressed his needs directly. Wu Haiqing was slightly taken aback, then laughed heartily. "That's easy to handle. How much do you need?" He genuinely wanted to befriend Wang Chung and acted quickly, procuring a large amount of fossil fuel for him. Wang Chung manually refueled his warship, filling its energy reserves once again, with a few barrels left temporarily stored in the vehicle. Meanwhile, Zhang Chao finally entered the research institute to undergo studies and tests by relevant experts and professors. They did not discover that Zhang Chao was not an awakened individual. From Zhang Chao, Wang Chung learned more intelligence about the research institute. In fact, there were not many experts studying awakeners within the institute building. Some projects even involved researching mutated organisms together, resulting in slow progress. Most research was still in the data accumulation phase. However, the institute was indeed highly regarded, equipped with all necessary facilities, even providing hot water, rice, and vegetables. Wang Chung understood this situation well because he knew that while those experts could not fight, if they made groundbreaking progress, they could potentially address the root causes of mutated organisms, which would be more effective than countless soldiers. Zhang Chao did not forget his own goals, and while cooperating with the tests, he subtly brought Wang Chung a lot of information. The connections between Haiqing, Fengtian, and even the central government in Kyoto were intermittent, with calls lasting only a few minutes every few days. It was said that the situation nationwide, even globally, was dire. In the Kyoto area, there had even been reports of level 8 mutated organisms. In just a month, over 70% of the global population had perished, and the remaining people were suffering greatly. Because of this, it was difficult for Haiqing to receive reinforcements, and they had to rely on themselves to survive. As for Fengtian, as a provincial capital, it seemed to have stabilized amidst the chaos of the apocalypse. Although it had also suffered heavy losses, it had gathered a large number of survivors. Zhang Chao said, "I asked around, and the situation in Fengtian should be better than ours. Uncle and aunt might have been rescued to the Fengtian survivor base. That would be the best case scenario." Wang Chung understood that the situation might not be so optimistic, but receiving this news still gave him a bit of comfort. This way, the chances of his parents surviving were higher. But he knew that his parents had no special skills, and even if they went to the survivor base, they would probably be just like the refugees outside. He had to speed up. During the day, Wang Chung hunted mutated creatures more desperately. After arriving here for 7 days, the total amount of energy points in Wang Cheng's possession surged, directly breaking through the 700-point mark. With 900 energy points, a level 3 battleship was within reach. Zhang Chao also brought back news about a precious female awakener from the research institute, who was from the military and had undergone modification experiments. Already nearing the level 2 awakening, much stronger than Qin Hai and others, being the first awakener in Haiqing. Upon hearing this news, Wang Chung sighed. It still has to be a soldier. How many ordinary survivor awakeners would dare to undergo modification experiments? Wang Chung had heard about a formidable woman in the Haiqing base before, and he respected her a bit. However, on the 8th day after arriving at the temporary survivor gathering point in Haiqing, Zhang Chao brought another shocking piece of news. "I heard from the research institute that the military is about to abandon Haiqing and organize everyone to evacuate to Pingfeng Mountain to establish a new survivor base there." This information was soon confirmed through Wu Haiqing. Wu Haiqing had been here longer, was well connected, and had a lot of information. Wang Chung found it hard to understand. The situation at the Haiqing temporary survivor gathering point was clearly manageable, so why evacuate? Wu Haiqing only pointed to the sky. "Have you noticed that the clouds in the sky haven't moved for a long time?" Wang Chung was suddenly startled by this remark. There was something wrong with the clouds in the sky. Chapter 77, The Great Evacuation of the City. The clouds in the sky hadn't moved for a long time. Wu Haiqing didn't know more. In his words, the rest of the people he knew were also unclear, and those who knew wouldn't say. After leaving Wu Haiqing, Wang Chung gazed at the sky. The sky over Haiqing was shrouded in dark clouds. It seemed that since the outbreak of the apocalypse, most of the time had been like this, with dark clouds covering the sky. Except for the initial few days when he had seen sunlight. He hadn't seen it much since. However, in these apocalyptic times, who could afford to observe the changes in the clouds every day? Wang Chung was the same. He only remembered seeing sunlight very rarely, yet he found it hard to judge whether the clouds were the same as those from a few days ago. Normally, the wind speed at the cloud level is much greater than at the ground level. Clouds could not remain still, they would be blown away by the wind, and would either condense into rain or completely evaporate with temperature changes. They could not remain immobile. Wang Chung inexplicably thought of that invisible creature he had encountered in the clouds. And the military had indeed never deployed fear. What was up in the sky? A sudden sense of inexplicable panic arose in his heart. What on earth was happening in this world? Could it be that even the sky they lived under every day had become dangerous and unfamiliar? The military and the research institute must know something. But they were on high alert and unwilling to disclose it. Wang Qing took a deep breath and quickly regained his composure. He knew that now was not the time to panic. The military had not prepared to publicly announce a retreat plan. But based on the information brought back by Zhang Chao, a full evacuation of the city might happen within a day or two. Wang Qing soon calmed down and discussed with Zhang Chao and Su Xinghai if a full city evacuation did occur and Haiqing fell. Wang Cheng did not intend to retreat to Pingfeng Mountain, but wanted to head directly to Fengtian to find his parents. Su Xinghai and Zhang Chao exchanged glances and said, "Let us go together. The more people, the more support." Wang Cheng did not refuse and nodded, saying, "Then we need to start preparing right away." The military is not making this news public clearly to avoid causing panic. Otherwise, with the military's current control, it would be impossible to maintain order for over 100,000 people here. Before that, we must prepare enough resources. Su Xinghai agreed wholeheartedly. Let us split up. Wang Cheng had to temporarily set aside his plan to hunt mutated creatures and took immediate action. His battleship had plenty of supplies, and at such a time, those supplies were equivalent to money. They lacked food and medicine but needed other resources. Wang Cheng spent lavishly, purchasing 500 rounds of rifle ammunition with a single purchase. He couldn't buy more. At this stage, weapons and equipment were still strictly controlled. Meanwhile, Su Xinghai, with 2 boxes of antipyretics Wang Cheng had given him, directly bought a small truck and 2 tons of fossil fuel. They felt the tense atmosphere among the survivor gathering points in Haiqing. Military vehicles had noticeably increased on the streets. Although most people still looked dazed, many were out buying supplies and weapons, clearly preparing for something. As they drove past the survivor base in Wang Cheng's vehicle, Su Xinghai couldn't help but sigh when he saw the survivors on the streets. Appearing as confused and dazed as ever, some were desperately preparing for survival, while others were oblivious to the impending danger. Those without strength were living increasingly worse. This was the reality of the human world. The desolation of the apocalypse was nothing less than this. Wang Cheng remained silent, instinctively lifting his head to look at a corner of the sky. In that position, there was a triangular cloud formation. Since he learned about the news yesterday, he had been observing this cloud, as it was quite unique and isolated, making it easier to watch and remember. Sure enough, from yesterday to now, that cloud had shown no change, like a decorative piece in the sky. Meanwhile, at the horizon of the sky, a strange crimson hue began to appear. Though he couldn't tell when it started, Wang Cheng pressed his lips together and reluctantly shifted his gaze. Then, at 5 o'clock the next morning, just as dawn broke, the citywide evacuation began without any warning. The military forces fully withdrew, having been dispatched early to various areas within the survivor gathering points to organize and orderly evacuate the survivors. The survivor self-defense team that Wang Cheng was part of was also awakened around 5, and in a daze, they reorganized on the spot into the 7th formation of the evacuation, joining the large group as the survivors began to retreat in droves. Those with cars drove themselves, while those without were loaded into a large number of trucks and buses brought in by the military, batch by batch, filling them with survivors. At that moment, nobody cared about overloading. Everyone desperately pushed forward, hoping others would board the vehicle faster. People were packed together, regardless of gender, age, or social status. Being able to get on a vehicle was considered fortunate, and having a seat was a form of happiness. The scene was chaotic, with small military drones hovering low and loudspeakers blaring commands everywhere. Countless vehicles formed a massive convoy, slowly starting to move. Clearly, the military was concerned about the professionalism of the survivors' self-defense team and did not intend to allow them to participate in the coordinated defense for the retreat. Instead, they gathered these individuals together as a group of survivors to include in the retreat convoy. It was a grand and magnificent scene, with military vehicles leading the way and batches of survivors being pulled from various places. Like rivers converging, a remarkably long and vast convoy formed, far exceeding the scale of previous formations, slowly advancing toward the outskirts of the city. Just as Wang Cheng had anticipated, the military and government had suffered heavy losses after this round of apocalyptic trials and continuous battles, facing a shortage of personnel and resources. Furthermore, they had to contend with monsters, leaving them with neither time nor energy to organize an orderly retreat. They set off in a large, hurried procession. The retreat appeared frantic and urgent, with vehicles filled with people departing in a grand manner. Those who couldn't board ran desperately behind, some even getting knocked down by the vehicles, crushed under the weight of the heavy tires. Blood, screams, and desperate cries echoed continuously. Some even ran to Wang Cheng's vehicle, waving large wads of cash, shouting, "Please let me on, please let me on." But they were soon left behind. Those who boarded felt anxious. while those without vehicles chased hopelessly, gradually being left behind. The massive convoy began to operate in this manner. Wang Cheng and his team had 3 vehicles. Crowded in the convoy, one was Wu Haiqing's team, driving alongside them, as they had planned to act together and look out for each other. Wang Cheng drove the armored vehicle, while Su Xinghai and Zhang Chao were responsible for the truck containing their fuel and weapons. Wang Qi and another person continued driving Yuan Rui's red Mazda. The 3 vehicles stayed closely together, and even when people desperately knocked on the windows to get in, they remained indifferent and continued forward. Wang Cheng could feel the immense panic and despair of the city-wide retreat. Surrounded by people, he couldn't even see the military personnel or vehicles from his position, only hearing the dense sounds of gunfire from the outermost part of the convoy. Such a large-scale retreat would undoubtedly trigger an attack from the mutated creatures in the city, and the military was engaged in intense firefights with them. Dongqing District is located on the edge of Haiqing. If all goes well, even with the current slow pace of less than a kilometer in half an hour, they should be able to leave the city before dark. Once they are out of the city and into the wilderness, the speed should increase. The convoy is moving slowly, and many people are still running near it. At this moment, another woman holding a child approached, desperately banging on the car window, crying out, "Save my child. Please let my child on the bus." The child in her arms seems to be only about 2 years old, looking innocent and confused, completely unaware of the despair and brutality surrounding them, even finding it amusing, smiling, and reaching out in the air. Wang Cheng's heart trembled slightly, and he struggled to look away. As the convoy moved on, the figures of the woman and child gradually disappeared. Some people couldn't keep up with the convoy and shouted in despair from behind. The sky's horizon was becoming increasingly red, a red that was alarming and unsettling. Some speculated that the 5th-level mutants from Haiqing University had mutated and evolved again, posing a threat to the entire city. However, after the initial chaos of the retreat, things gradually stabilized. Wang Cheng found himself rarely needing to take action, moving along with the convoy like an ordinary survivor. The convoy was moving faster than Wang Cheng had anticipated, or rather, the military seemed to be intentionally speeding things up. They were far more anxious than Wang Cheng had imagined, eager to exit the city as quickly as possible. By noon, they had already reached the outskirts of Dongqing District, and Wang Cheng estimated that they would be out of the city by 2 or 3 in the afternoon. Gunfire from the perimeter of the convoy peaked, indicating that they were facing an unprecedented assault from the mutated creatures. The military was advancing under tremendous pressure. Perhaps they had abandoned many people, but similarly, they had also saved many. However, the military is not omnipotent. They have their limits and cannot save everyone. Upon reaching the outskirts, the surrounding buildings became shorter, and hope sparkled in everyone's eyes. They were about to leave the city. There couldn't be that many monsters outside, right? Would they be safe at Pingfeng Mountain? Would they be able to eat their fill? At that moment, a deafening sound suddenly echoed in the sky. An array of sunlight broke through the dark clouds. In the fleeing convoy, countless people looked up in terror, witnessing the heavy clouds above suddenly split open, turning a brilliant red. Following this, a massive red fireball plummeted from the gap, burning fiercely and breaking apart in midair, with a part of it falling straight down towards the long and large fleeing convoy. Countless terrified screams filled the air. Chapter 78. He is a level 2 awakened. The military opened fire in an attempt to intercept it, with several rockets trailing long tails of fire as they ascended into the sky. In the rush, only one hit its target, causing the falling fireball to disintegrate for a second time, turning into a torrential rain of fire above their heads, crashing down. The convoy was instantly thrown into chaos. Even when shattered, it still carries unparalleled kinetic energy. Even a tiny piece the size of a fingernail can easily penetrate a vehicle's body. The ordinary vehicles used by the survivors are nothing but live targets. Wang Cheng watched helplessly as a fireball struck a bus filled with people, instant screams erupting inside, flames spreading rapidly. In the chaos of people crowded together, there was nowhere to hide. They could only wait to be burned alive, jumping out from windows and doors. When one vehicle stopped, countless others became blocked. An accident turned into a chain reaction, fire erupting everywhere in the dense convoy. Someone was running on the ground, engulfed in flames, and the convoy began to show signs of disintegration. Some shouted that it was a meteor from the sky, while others claimed that the people in space had mutated and the space station had fallen from above. However, few truly saw what the fireball was. Only panic grew more intense with the passage of time. Wang Cheng took the initiative to move forward, clearing the way, with Su Xinghai and Wang Qi closely following behind. In the midst of chaos, the convoy was clearly fracturing, with military personnel and survivors mingling together, some running ahead, others lost in confusion, and some had completely detached from the main group, running forward. A police motorcycle whizzed by, with someone shouting through a loudspeaker, "This is an order. All members of the survivors' self-defense team, Please protect yourselves and guide the surrounding survivors to move towards the exit of the city. His voice abruptly cut off. A frenzy of screams erupted as a bloody mass suddenly fell from above, splattering onto his head and face. His body lurched forward and he fell off the motorcycle, which overturned and crashed into a truck filled with people, causing it to tilt slowly. A sedan behind, focused only on escaping, couldn't brake in time and crashed into it. Then came a deafening explosion. In the blinding light of the flames, many were thrown into the air. As the flames subsided, Wang Chung sped past in his vehicle, mounting the sidewalk and racing forward. His gaze swept past the very guard, who was getting up from the ground, a balloon-like mass on his head. Scarlet spores. It's the scarlet spores. A roaring sound surged from behind them. The blood-red clouds suddenly expanded. Haicheng University had transformed into another world. The campus was covered in blood-red vines, intertwining green and crimson. Huge root systems spread across the campus like veins, as if it had become a garden of ancient world creatures. Towering scarlet flowers rose from every corner of the school, reaching high into the sky, blooming with a thunderous roar just moments ago. That scene was as splendid as 100 flowers blooming at once. But what flew out were countless spores, spreading across the sky, overwhelming the locations of humans and other creatures. Monsters throughout the city howled, desperately charging forward, mindless mutants chasing the long, retreating human lines, while conscious mutated beings fled frantically from the spores, all converging towards the Eastern District. The first to fall was this terrifying crimson rain. Soldiers from the military turned their weapons skyward and fired desperately, but they could only watch helplessly as the torrential downpour of despair drew closer. Mutated creatures, resembling fleshy balls, burst out from the sides of the buildings, rolling frantically on the ground. Those trampled underfoot were doomed to die. The collapse of the convoy had begun in earnest. Flames erupted everywhere, and screams of fleeing people filled the air. Wang Chung pressed forward, while on the other side, the convoy in Wuhai City struggled to advance amid the chaos. They were already on the outskirts of the Eastern District. If they could just move forward and escape the urban area, perhaps safety awaited them. This thought lingered in everyone's heart. Wang Chung finally understood why the military was retreating in haste. The monster from High City University had evolved further. It sought to devour the entire city. With its capacity to spread spores, remaining at the temporary survivor gathering point in High City was tantamount to seeking death. The number of military personnel and vehicles dwindled, as if they had all fled, or perhaps they had been overwhelmed by the monsters while resisting. Along the way, he could only see large groups of survivors, stripped of military protection, struggling to survive in the apocalypse, desperately fleeing. The retreat route had transformed into a scene reminiscent of a slaughterhouse, with torrents of crimson spores and mutated creatures wreaking havoc, flames and cries merging into the last theme of this world. Rumors spread from ahead. The convoy in front had already fled. The military had abandoned them, taking the experts and dignitaries with them to Pingfeng Mountain. We are finished. We have been abandoned. Wang Chung didn't know if the lead military convoy had escaped, but their own convoy was halted after advancing a distance. It seemed a fierce battle had just taken place here. The ground was littered with bodies and blood, and a large truck lay overturned, billowing thick smoke. Looking through the windows, one could faintly see charred figures inside. Many people were busy rescuing the injured and sick on the ground. The military had set up a checkpoint here and was urgently recruiting awakened individuals. To Wang Cheng's surprise, he recognized the small military leader here. It was Li Xinqing, whom he had met before. He seemed to have been promoted and was now standing at a height. All awakened individuals, you are temporarily requisitioned. We need your strength. Please stop your vehicles immediately and report to my vehicle. There is an urgent mission concerning the convoy and humanity. We require your assistance. Other unrelated survivors, please leave immediately. Do not believe the rumors. We have not abandoned you, and we will not abandon survivors. Our forces have been scattered, and our main unit has been attacked by a level 5 mutant creature from the other side of High City, losing control of the overall situation. Please take care of yourselves and escape the city as best as you can. Our brother units will regroup outside the city to assist you. In this special period of emergency, if we discover any awakened individuals disguising themselves as ordinary survivors to avoid battle and refusing to accept the emergency requisition, they will be killed on the spot. Beside Li Xinqing, there were 2 military vehicles, 2 machine guns, and a dozen armed soldiers. Wang Cheng's heart skipped a beat upon hearing this. The military rarely uses such severe methods to demand action from survivors, which likely indicates a serious situation, particularly concerning the convoy and humanity. With the saying, under a collapsing nest, how can there be complete eggs? Wang Cheng took a deep breath and slowly moved forward. Many vehicles had stopped, and he recognized several awakened individuals among them. Qin Hai was even pulled to the front, urging everyone to join the convoy. Behind, Wu Haiqing peeked out, wondering what was going on. In the blink of an eye, over 30 awakened individuals had gathered, with Qin Hai and Wu Haiqing taking the lead. Li Xinqing counted heads, and, seeing both Wu Haiqing and Qin Hai present, his face lit up with excitement. That's great. With you here, we may have a better chance, he said. Qin Hai and Wu Haiqing were recognized as the top among the awakened, so Li Xinqing was naturally pleased to see them. He stood among the awakened individuals and vehicles, saying, "Thank you all for being willing to lend a hand. I have no other choice. Our troops have been scattered. Our task is simple. We need to rescue a group of experts who hold a vast amount of critical resources and data related to apocalyptic research. It is essential that everyone cooperates to ensure their safety." After finishing his speech, he looked at Qin Hai and Wu Haiqing. These two had high prestige and exceptional strength among the awakened, and he needed their help to coordinate the others. You two are the strongest awakened here, and I hope you can assist in managing and organizing the others to cooperate with us. Just then, a woman in military uniform standing next to Li Xinqing suddenly pointed at Wang Cheng, who was sitting in another vehicle, and said, "Wait. They are not the strongest awakened here. He is. He is a level 2 awakened." At this statement, everyone in the area was taken aback. Qin Hai and Wu Haiqing's expressions changed, revealing their shock. No one in the entire Haiqing had ever reached level 2. How did they not know someone had already achieved it? Wang Cheng was equally stunned. He had injected level 2 serum, and almost no one knew about it. Who had this foresight, and why were they so brazen as to expose him? Chapter 79. I'm done pretending. I'm not hiding anymore. Wang Cheng had come, but was still observing, not planning to step forward. Moderation was the instinct and nature of the people from his culture. He wanted to contribute, but was reluctant to reveal his strengths until absolutely necessary. He was shocked, thinking he had been secretly investigated and thoroughly assessed by the military. However, upon focusing on the speaker, he almost spat out a mouthful of blood. The person was none other than Su Ling, who had been incessantly claiming that Wang Cheng was a level 2 awakened. This woman had changed into military attire, and her face was dirty, making Wang Cheng momentarily fail to recognize her. She stared directly at him, clearly still fixated on his level 2 awakened strength. But Wang Cheng quickly regained his composure. The so-called secondary awakened individual that Su Ling thought of is not the same as what Wang Cheng believes to be a secondary awakened individual. Wang Cheng is once again left speechless by Su Ling's emotional intelligence. However, she is here. How are Chun Lan and the others doing? Li Xinqing also recognized Wang Cheng's trio. It's you? You're a secondary awakened individual? Other awakened individuals cast curious glances. For awakened individuals, aside from surviving, the most important thing is to enhance their strength. Achieving secondary awakening means enjoying greater privileges within the military, and it also increases one's survival chances in the apocalypse. Since the outbreak of the apocalypse, with so many awakened individuals, each reaching secondary awakening, hearing that there is one among them is astonishing. Wu Haiqing remarked, "Are you joking? Brother Wang, I know him. He's a secondary awakened individual?" Qin Hai seemed to recall traveling with Wang Cheng, and said, "Impossible. How could he be a secondary awakened individual? I'm not even at that level." Everyone's gaze fell on Wang Cheng, filled with jealousy, envy, disbelief, and deep suspicion. Wang Cheng remained silent for a moment, lowered the car window, and said, "All right, I won't pretend anymore. I'll be honest. I'm indeed stronger than average, but whether I'm a secondary awakened individual, I don't know. Plus, I rarely use my awakening abilities because I modified my car. Officer Li, give the order. Where are we going to rescue people?" Wang Cheng's words seemed to say something while also saying nothing. Qin Hai clearly showed displeasure and said, "Brother, don't hold back. Awakened individuals don't use their abilities but rely on modified cars. Haha, I see your car. I don't know what brand it is, but where's the modification? This is the apocalypse. If you really are a secondary awakened individual, you should announce it and tell everyone how you achieved it. If not, we can still be friends and share knowledge." His eyes flickered as he stared intently at Wang Cheng. Qin Hai appeared to have a broad perspective, but was also quite self-centered. He enjoyed being the center of attention and had always aimed to become a secondary awakened individual, hoping to advance faster and further than others. Aside from the military's female awakened individual, he felt inferior. Why should this suddenly emerged awakened individual overshadow him? Not clarifying his words, he directly lost his temper. However, at this moment, Li Xinqing interjected, "Brother Wang is right. The situation is urgent. We must move forward immediately. Saving the experts is our priority. Let's set off now." Su Ling, realizing she had misspoken, fell silent. With Li Xinqing speaking, Qin Hai merely shot Wang Cheng a dissatisfied glance before turning away, coldly stating, "I hope you can put in some real effort. If I find out you're slacking off or trying to take advantage of the situation, I will execute you on the spot." On the other side, one of Qin Hai's subordinate awakened individuals scornfully said, "What secondary awakened individual? I don't see anything impressive, hiding and showing off." Hearing this, Zhang Chao in the back seat couldn't sit still. "Damn it, is he targeting us? Who does he think he is?" just because he has some popularity and reputation. He thinks he's important? Should they be executed? Does he even have the qualification? However, Su Xinghai reacted quickly and pulled Zhang Chao back. The entire team began to move. And Wu Haiqing took a deep look at Wang Cheng. He didn't seem as surprised as Qin Hai, as he had long suspected that Wang Cheng and his group were unusual. Yet, he was deeply doubtful in his heart. Could it be that Wang Cheng was really a second-level awakener? Wang Cheng wasn't angry. He just laughed from behind, saying, "You can give it a try." Their convoy set off directly, and it was clear that Li Xinqing's request for the help of the awakener team was a last resort. As he mentioned, the surrounding troops had been scattered, communication was cut off, and he couldn't gather them. He bore an urgent task of bringing the experts back. Their convoy quickly left the main road, speeding ahead. Everyone was a bit surprised. The experts they were trying to rescue were not on the retreat route, which meant that they had encountered danger after separating from the team. But why would such valuable experts stray from the main group? However, everyone soon had little time to think, as the monsters surrounding them increased rapidly. Those mutated creatures charged at the convoy like mad, cloaked in crimson spores, expressing their madness and fear through this frenzy. Casualties appeared almost immediately. One awakener's vehicle was overturned by a strong mutated creature, and the two awakeners inside were torn to shreds. Ahead, two military vehicles cleared the way, their machine guns sweeping across. Yet, they still faced tremendous resistance. At that moment, two high-speed rockets suddenly shot in from behind, striking the mutated creatures ahead with a thunderous boom and explosion. Monsters were sent flying in all directions, injured or killed, clearing a path instantly. Crucially, there was not just one rocket. There were 6 in total. The battlefield was lit up in flames, and amidst the rolling heat waves, the road ahead was cleared, with mutated creatures howling in agony. On the vehicle ahead, Li Xinqing couldn't help but turn to see where the missiles had come from. Wang Cheng's black sedan roared out from the smoke, with a rocket launcher protruding from the car, emitting wisps of hot white smoke. Su Xinghai and the other's truck followed closely behind. Zhang Chao's eyes nearly popped out. When did second brother upgrade to rockets? He's got a rocket launcher now? Su Xinghai was equally astonished, and Wu Haiqing's expression changed dramatically. He never expected that Wang Cheng had such capabilities. To retrofit a rocket launching system in a sedan, is this guy a college student? He suddenly felt a chill. He had been traveling with Wang Cheng, but had no idea he had such means. If Wang Cheng wanted to, with his firepower, they would have been finished long ago. Thankfully, he had a good relationship with Wang Cheng. At that moment, Wang Cheng was manually loading rockets into the launcher. During this time, he had obtained a fair amount of rockets through Captain Zhang, so he wasn't short on ammunition. The monster density was intense just now, with a barrage that caused a surge of at least 30 energy points in Wang Cheng's area. At this moment, his vehicle sped forward, driving alongside the BMW that Qin Hai was in. Qin Hai was still inside the BMW, using his abilities and a rifle to fight off mutated creatures. As Wang Cheng approached, the barrel of his weapon tilted directly towards Qin Hai. In an instant, a cold sweat trickled down from the top of Qin Hai's head. Compared to the rocket launcher of Wang Cheng, the muzzle of his rifle seemed like a child's toy. At this moment, with the barrel of Wang Cheng's weapon aimed at Qin Hai, he could easily send Qin Hai to the skies if he wanted to. Everyone else turned to look. This was incredibly arrogant. At this moment, Wang Cheng's earlier remark about "you can give it a try" truly resonated. Wang Cheng looked at him and smiled. "Do you want to give it a try and see what modifications I made to this vehicle? How well it's been modified? With this kind of firepower, why would I need to get out and use my awakened abilities?" Qin Hai was left speechless, staring hard at Wang Cheng. Wang Cheng let out a cold laugh. "I'm not looking for trouble with you, so don't bring it upon yourself." Finally, Wang Cheng slowly moved his vehicle aside, and with the sound of gunfire, in coordination with the military, they charged through. Ahead, Li Xinqing's military vehicle began to slow down. In front of them, sporadic gunfire could be heard. The experts they were looking for were just ahead, surrounded by layers of mutated creatures, in a precarious situation. Chapter 80. Protect the Experts. Scenes from Haiqing University resurfaced in Wang Cheng's mind. On the streets, there were humanoid monsters swaying, with gigantic, balloon-like growths on their heads, dark red in color. Swaying as they moved, like demons crawling out of hell, twisting and struggling towards the humans in front of them. The expert's vehicle had flipped over. They seemed to have many people, but now only a few remained, protected by several injured soldiers. Those soldiers fired desperately, but still couldn't stop the increasingly numerous monsters, watching helplessly as the creatures approached, clawing and tearing at their bodies. Amidst the blood and screams, despair appeared in their eyes. But at that moment, deafening gunfire roared from the outer layer of the monsters as Li Xinqing led the charge, relying on their powerful firepower in coordination with the awakened ones to eliminate the surrounding creatures. They quickly got the experts and soldiers into the vehicles, moving fluidly and swiftly. Once the target was on board, they immediately sped away. The vehicle carrying the experts was positioned centrally towards the back, at the core of the entire convoy. Whether military soldiers or awakened individuals, at this moment, they all had one singular mission: to protect the experts. The experts clutched their laptops, documents, and files tightly. They were being protected on the battlefield. But they also had their own battles to fight. As the number of monsters increased, Wang Chung even saw a swarm of mutated sea creatures storming onto the streets, roaring and killing indiscriminately, with even the mutated beings unable to escape. However, Li Xinqing did not engage them in combat, quickly changing positions and leading the convoy back to the main road at high speed. They have lost a significant amount of time, completely disconnecting from other survivors and the main forces. By the time they returned to the main road, the shadows of other troops were nearly invisible, with only a few scattered survivors desperately fleeing. Armored vehicles rolled over the chaotic streets, leaving behind flickering flames, while monsters roared and charged from both sides. However, their convoy was composed entirely of combat personnel, maintaining strong firepower and speed, and they were not hindered by these monsters. Wang Chung had also rejoined the convoy, retracting his rifle and rocket launcher as if a beast was sheathing its claws. At this moment, he no longer needed to clear the path. Wang Chung had plenty of rifle ammunition, but rocket ammunition was limited. As he advanced, he took out his shotgun and opened fire. Just moments ago, he had spent a full 80 energy points to upgrade his shotgun. He had long planned for this upgrade, but had struggled with insufficient energy points. The upgrade from level 2 to level 3 consumed too many points, and he had been eager to upgrade his battleship, delaying the shotgun upgrade. Now, with nearly 800 energy points, he decided to upgrade directly in battle, bringing his shotgun to level 3. The level 3 shotgun underwent a significant transformation. A new structure appeared on one side, an energy pulse device. Now, when Wang Chung fired, he could not only shoot with the shotgun, but also activate the energy pulse. The invisible ripples vibrated, and the head of a roaring mutant with a massive, balloon-like growth burst like an actual balloon. Silent and sudden, it collapsed with a thud. Moreover, this energy pulse device did not consume physical ammunition. It used electrical energy, combined with the solar battery system equipped with the level 3 shotgun, or charged directly from the battleship. Wang Chung's level 3 shotgun could be described as a small perpetual motion machine. Bang, bang, bang. Along the way, the heads of the mutants exploded one after another. Blood splattered, and Wang Cheng's peculiar attacks, hidden within the dense and intertwined firepower, became increasingly stealthy. If someone were to discover this, they would likely think it was a unique ability of some awakened individual, without a clue that it was Wang Cheng's shotgun. After all, what gun in this era could truly achieve the pulse energy headshots that only appeared in science fiction movies? Wang Chung knew this was not the end. His level 3 shotgun could still be upgraded. However, the next upgrade required 160 energy points, a number that was still a bit much for him at this moment. For now, it was sufficient. On the other side, Qin Hai had climbed out of his vehicle, standing on the roof with one hand holding a gun and the other palm ablaze, battling the mutants in a striking and flamboyant manner, drawing the attention of many. As the top figure among the awakened at the temporary survivor gathering point in the coastal city, he knew how to present himself. But Wang Chung understood the deeper meaning behind Qin Hai's actions. The guy stepped forward, clearly wanting to compare himself with the recently celebrated figure, but more importantly, he was afraid that this figure might secretly strike him while things were chaotic. By standing out now, he attracted everyone's attention and became the center of focus. If the other party wanted to take action against him, it would be much harder, as others would surely notice. The latter only sneered coldly, deliberately moving closer to match his pace. "Aren't you afraid of me? Well then, just keep standing on the roof." At that moment, gunfire was heard ahead, and the lead vehicle slowed down. They were about to merge with the troops waiting for them in front. This group was also familiar to the other party, being part of a certain unit. As they merged, they were gathered around a massive pit on the ground, seemingly created by something that had just fallen from the sky. In the pit lay a multi-legged giant creature, standing 8 meters tall, with a body resembling a column, filled with grotesque crimson flesh. Below its body, numerous legs resembling human legs were growing, and alongside them were many arms, frantically clawing. This was at least a level 2 mutated creature. For ordinary survivors, even those with some combat capabilities, this was an overwhelming threat. However, the military's firepower was not something that such a creature could shake. Tanks fired 2 high-explosive rounds, and a 130mm shell directly sent the creature to its end, blowing apart half of its body, while the remaining legs and arms fell to the ground like squid tentacles. The two convoys quickly merged under urgent circumstances. Li Xinqing instructed everyone to stay in their vehicles while he jumped down to negotiate with the unit. To everyone's surprise, their next action was not to retreat, but to turn off the engines and send a group of soldiers to protect the experts as they approached the giant pit on the ground. Li Xinqing furrowed his brows. It seemed they wanted to investigate and take samples on the spot. What exactly was the thing that had fallen from the sky? Unfortunately, the area around the pit and the experts was tightly sealed with vehicles, making it impossible for him to see from his angle. Meanwhile, more and more monsters were emerging as dusk fell, the sky turning blood red with terrifying crimson spores drifting above. On the ground, countless monsters were rushing in from all directions. Leading the charge was a giant mutated crab, the size of a large van, with a vibrant green body, howling as it approached. A high explosive shell was fired at it, but merely bounced off its shell, blasting through a nearby unfortunate residential building. Amidst the thunderous noise and rolling smoke, the giant crab leaped onto the tank in front, its mandibles exuding an extreme cold that instantly pierced through half of the tank. The soldiers inside froze from the chilling temperature, desperately trying to warm up, but it was too late. Just as they tried to move their arms, they heard a snap, and their arms broke like ice columns. Zhang Chao's expression changed drastically. Wow, could this be the legendary Super King Crab? This is a level 3 mutated creature. Protect the experts. Protect the experts. The sound of waves crashing echoed across the battlefield. Military soldiers and awakened individuals opened fire from all directions, and some awakened ones, terrified by the countless monsters, screamed, "Why aren't we running? What are we waiting for? What are the experts doing?" However, the answer came in the form of an even more terrifying roar. At the end of the wide main road, countless monsters suddenly scattered in panic. The buildings emitted loud sounds of collapse. On a street hundreds of meters away, a creature nearly 50 meters long, resembling a whale, with a blood-red body covered in dense black and white scales, was howling as it swam out. It had no legs. Its body was like a giant whale. It didn't need legs. It was gliding through the air, casting an unparalleled massive shadow over the heads of the monsters. Zhang Rui's expression changed when he saw it from a distance. He recognized this monster because there were related records in the military's database. This was a level 4 mutated creature, the Voyager. Chapter 81. It's him. The Voyager, a level 4 mutated creature, a floating giant monster. Some awakened individuals also recognized it and began to scream frantically. Some even completely broke down, abandoning their positions and fleeing in a panic, scrambling away with all their limbs. These awakened individuals possessed powers stronger than ordinary survivors, but they were still just ordinary people at heart. When the situation spiraled out of control, it was normal for their mental state to explode. Meanwhile, the level 3 mutated creature had just been dealt with. Another main battle tank had timely switched to armor-piercing rounds, shattering the giant king crab's body. It was shot through entirely, flipping over onto the ground, with smoke curling up from the wound. If one got too close, they could even smell a strange aroma mixed with a foul odor, reminiscent of roasted crab. However, the threat posed by the level 4 mutated creature far exceeded that of the giant mutated crab. They were not even in the same league. The giant tree in Haicheng University was only level 5. Here, a level 4 creature had the capability to annihilate everyone on their side. Even a 20mm caliber cannon couldn't pierce the monster's body. Not far away, the military's main battle tank was slowly moving out of formation, its tracks crushing the corpses and ruins beneath, as its heavy guns slowly turned, preparing to load the second armor-piercing round. Zhang Rui immediately sent someone to inquire about the experts in the giant pit. The experts were being closely protected by Li Xinqing and others. At this moment, Li Xinqing proactively came out, whispering, "Professor Chen said it's still not possible. That thing is too difficult to excavate. He wants to take it all away." How important could that thing be? Li Xinqing glanced back at the scholars busy below, took a deep breath, and said, "Professor Chen said that thing is more important than the lives of all of us here." This was a direct quote. After Li Xinqing finished speaking, he stared intently at Zhang Rui. "Captain Zhang, what should we do?" Here, the highest ranking position is held by Captain Zhang, who will decide what to do next. Upon hearing this, Zhang Rui's body trembled slightly as he murmured, "Is it more important than the lives of everyone here? I understand now." Immediately, this iron-willed man gritted his teeth and shouted furiously, "Everyone, the entire battalion, move forward with me. All survivors, retreat and protect the experts. The rest, charge with me." Zhang Rui's hand turned his head and looked deeply at Li Xinqing, saying, "I will lead my men to buy you time with our lives. Once successful, don't worry about us. Take the experts and the awakened ones and leave immediately. This matter has nothing to do with those awakened. They are merely survivors. Every life counts." As he spoke, he personally climbed onto an open military vehicle, operating the 20mm heavy machine gun mounted on it, roaring as he opened fire and charged out of the battle formation. Just ahead, the main battle tank was firing fiercely, a second armor-piercing round shooting out from its long barrel with a diameter of 130mm, hitting the massive body of the level 3 mutated giant crab, piercing its black and white shell and exploding flesh and blood everywhere, nearly penetrating its body. However, while this was enough to take down a level 3 creature. It seemed to have no devastating effect on this level 4 monster. It merely howled madly, twisting its body and crashing into a nearby building. The structure, heavily battered by artillery, collapsed with a thunderous roar, debris flying in clouds of dust instantly engulfing half the street, the booming noise drowning out countless heavy gunfire. The vehicles and people in the city were also engulfed, visibility dropping sharply. Ahead, another building along the street was smashed through. As the level 4 mutated creature swam through the air like a whale in water, swiftly approaching and directly flipping the main battle tank. Meanwhile, Zhang Rui's Hen had already led his team out. He no longer cared about life or death. With bloodshot eyes and continuous roars, he charged forward with his soldiers. Forming a bloody iron defense line, they pushed to the front of the awakened ones, leading the entire battle formation, with gunfire ringing out. Behind them, many were stunned. Zhang Chao murmured, "Have they gone mad? This is suicide." But Wang Cheng turned to look back. Amidst the swirling dust, in the giant pit, there were still people busy. What were they looking for? What had fallen from the sky? Wang Cheng wanted to take a look, but he knew that in such a chaotic battlefield, he wouldn't have that opportunity. Just a glance could cost countless lives. The creature was sweeping past them, its massive jaws open, revealing rows of sharp teeth like a shark, emitting an invisible, terrifying shockwave from its mouth. It was like a violent wind sweeping across the land. The military formation ahead was instantly scattered by this unparalleled force. Even tanks weighing over 10 tons were violently tossed aside, with smoke and flames rising everywhere, explosions echoing continuously. Taking advantage of the breakthrough by the Voyager, numerous small mutated creatures also broke through the front line, charging into the convoy and causing a bloody chaos. Zhang Chao leaned out of the vehicle, using his abilities to fight, while Wu Haiqing jumped out, his body shimmering with gold as he recklessly resisted. At the edge of the giant pit, Li Xinqing established a desperate defense line to protect the experts behind him. The other survivors and warriors, the Voyager, would become the last straw that broke the battlefield. No one could stop it. Is this what a level 4 mutated creature looks like? Wang Qing turned around, just in time to see Zhang Rui's formation struggling desperately to hold the line. He kept looking back, watching the awakened ones behind him, the people he needed to protect. He moved forward with a resolve to fight to the death, but anxiety filled his heart. What he didn't know was that in the darkness, someone was watching him. Wang Cheng. Outside, smoke and dust rolled, gunfire roared, yet Wang Cheng's battleship remained as steady as a mountain. Inside the soundproof system, it was almost quiet aboard his ship. He knew he had to do something. Otherwise, perhaps today he and Su Xinghai could escape. But Zhang Rui's group would be doomed. Wang Cheng was curious about what the experts were searching for. Yet, compared to life, those things seemed less significant. When others were willing to risk their lives for him, Wang Cheng could no longer sit still. As a human being, one must act and refrain from certain things. Slowly, Wang Cheng extended his hand. He was no longer going to conceal his battleship. A level 4 mutated creature, huh? Wang Cheng took a deep breath. He directly activated the battleship. Amidst the smoke and dust, Su Xinghai and others, who were shielded by Wang Cheng, looked up in surprise. Wu Haiqing, covered in blood after tearing apart a mutated creature, saw the light up ahead. Captain, Captain, look, look, Zhao shouted hoarsely. Zhang Rui, with blood oozing from his eardrums, turned back after several calls. Amidst the heavy rumble and rolling smoke, the navigation lights of the battleship lit up. In the center of the convoy, a black lightning bolt, like a sharp arrow at dawn, rose majestically. In the distance, Qin Hai's mouth dropped open, unable to believe the scene before him. Behind the convoy, Su Ling also stared in disbelief. She knew Wang Cheng's vehicle was extraordinary, but she always thought his real strength lay in being a level 2 awakened one. Until this moment. No wonder he had such a thing. Did he really need to rely on the abilities and identity of an awakened one? Before their eyes, Wang Cheng's vehicle transformed into battleship form, rising slowly in the center of the formation amidst the astonished crowd. The anti-gravity engine activated. The missile launch bay was ready. The intelligent flight assistance system was online. The battleship was activated. The cabin darkened before illuminating. Wang Cheng gazed down from within the ship, using the onboard speaker to say, "Zhang Rui, my people are entrusted to you. This Voyager is mine. No one will die today, I promise you." Under the dim sky, the Voyager let out a mournful howl as the warships from the royal city accelerated in stages, like a streak of black lightning, swiftly breaking through. A missile was launched, trailing a long tail of flames, crashing down with a thunderous explosion, lighting up the sky. Amidst the piercing howls, the dark warship charged towards the massive behemoth. On the ground, Zhang Rui's Hen was already too shocked to speak, watching the streak of lightning soar, repeatedly murmuring, "It's him. It's really him." Chapter 82. Air Battle over the Sea City. The pitch-black warship zoomed past at high speed. The enormous Level 4 behemoth Voyager was hit directly by a missile launched from the royal city, resulting in a massive explosion. Its gigantic body, floating in midair, suddenly plummeted, crushing one abandoned vehicle after another on the ground. Immediately after, it let out an enraged roar, opening its enormous mouth and lunging after the warship from the royal city. With an earth-shattering crash, another building was violently breached. The colossal creature prowled between the streets and buildings, closely pursuing the royal city's warship, leaving a trail of debris and smoke, disappearing from sight. On the ground, in a truck, Su Xinghai and Zhang Chao exchanged glances, both seeing the astonishment in each other's eyes. They had spent the most time with the royal city, but the longer it was, the more unbelievable it felt. The previous Wuling vehicle had already been astonishing enough, but this one was simply otherworldly. Zhang Chao even muttered, "Boss, do you think second brother could be an alien? Like something from the stars, an extraterrestrial left on Earth, just happening to encounter the end of the world, and now not hiding it anymore?" Su Xinghai opened his mouth, momentarily at a loss for how to respond to that. But just then, another vehicle roared out, closely following the royal city and the Voyager. It was Su Ling's car. If the royal city had seen this scene, he would have been greatly surprised. This seemingly delicate daughter of a prominent figure was showing a wild side completely different from his impression, driving like a whirlwind, almost like a soldier. In the chaotic battlefield, with the experts taking precedence, no one paid attention to Su Ling. Zhang Rui's hen, however, was fixated on the direction in which the royal city had departed, reflecting on his interactions with him, increasingly feeling that this young man was simply unfathomable. What left Zhang Rui's hen most incredulous was that the pitch-black warship was a transformed vehicle. He remembered that no such technology seemed to exist in all of Huaxia, transforming cars into motorcycles, sedans into warplanes. What kind of black technology was this? But Zhang Rui's reaction was swift. The royal city had drawn away the level 4 mutated creature, creating a tremendous opportunity for them. He immediately took command of his troops, fortifying defenses and rebuilding the front line to fend off the onslaught of monsters from all directions. Their mission was not yet complete. Even though the royal city had brought him immense shock, Zhang Rui's hen had no time to dwell on it. However, among the convoy, there was one person whose face was completely ashen, as if mourning a great loss. That was Qin Hai. He stood on top of his vehicle, dazed for a long time before finally coming to his senses. He suddenly felt a burning sensation on his face. The words he had exchanged with Wang Cheng now felt like a series of slaps, brutally striking him. How could he not see the modifications? Wasn't that a joke? Their vehicle could transform into a fighter jet and soar into the sky. What kind of modification was this? Who exactly was Wang Cheng? Qin Hai's body swayed, unable to participate in the fight. As he reflected on his recent actions, he increasingly felt he had offended someone formidable, with a face that shifted between various emotions. He looked in the direction where Wang Cheng and the fourth-level giant creature had vanished, and he thought with hatred, "Die, Voyager. You must take down that Wang Cheng. Eliminate him. That kind of person, more powerful than me, deserves to die." A fighter jet ascended from the convoy, each party holding their own thoughts. While Wang Cheng's intention was clear, to eliminate the monster behind him. The Voyager resembled a whale, covered in black and white scales, fierce and terrifying, and its 50-meter-long body was its greatest weapon. As it chased through the city, the buildings before it seemed as fragile as paper, easily crushed. With its gaping maw, it unleashed an invisible shockwave, a tremendous force that sent vehicles flying and peeled off the plaster from the walls of nearby buildings. Wang Cheng urgently ascended, narrowly avoiding the onslaught, and then executed a spin, launching a missile. With ample energy reserves, he could fire at will and print missiles. The missile, trailing a long tail of fire, soared through the sky and struck with a deafening boom, causing the enormous Voyager to plunge and emit a piercing howl. Its scales were torn and bloodied, and its massive body twisted violently between buildings. It suddenly whipped its head and crashed through a structure, snapping at Wang Cheng's warship, which was darting past behind the building. Wang Cheng accelerated instantly, turning to fire another missile. This one struck its eye. The black and white scales flared, and amidst the carnage, one of its right eyes was blown out, creating a massive bloody cavity. Yet, it seemed to feel no pain, opening its gaping mouth as a shockwave surged forth. Simultaneously, its body charged forward, crashing into the right rear side of Wang Cheng's warship. A violent tremor followed. Warning: the battleship's tail wing has sustained severe impact, right side thruster damaged. Warning: this was a collision of tens of thousands of tons. The speed at which such a colossal creature collided was akin to a weapon of mass destruction. Wang Cheng's warship lost balance, nearly plummeting from the sky. Urgently, he ascended and flew forward. Behind him, the terrifying howls relentlessly pursued, racing across the ground after Wang Cheng. Below, countless monsters lifted their heads, screaming and clawing at the sky, unable to leap up, helplessly watching as these two giants cast enormous shadows over them. Then, another thunderous impact followed. The propulsion system was damaged, causing a significant reduction in the flight speed of the ship. This time, it couldn't avoid the impact, and the vessel swayed violently as alarms blared throughout the hull. The pilot gripped the control stick tightly, using the remaining propulsion and anti-gravity systems to stabilize the craft. He couldn't gain altitude. There was something in the clouds above the city, and going higher would be even more dangerous. If it were a real fighter jet, it would likely have been shattered by such an impact, but the ship's main structure remained intact, though the rear right propulsion unit began to smoke. And his speed dropped once more. The pilot struggled against it, feeling an unprecedented strain. The power of the pursuing creature was no joke, without him drawing its attention. It could easily annihilate the entire military unit. This was the terror of a level 4 mutated creature. He urgently pulled up, then descended, launching a missile and 2 rockets. Amid the deafening explosions, the projectiles struck the creature from above. In the thick smoke and flames, its massive body was forcefully slammed to the ground, dust swirling, flesh flying. And its head was nearly blown apart. Yet, it was still alive, raising its gaping maw, letting out a terrifying roar that shook the air. The shockwave almost sending the pilot's ship flying. The enormous creature lunged, attempting to bite the ship in half. Fortunately, the pilot quickly ascended and maneuvered, continuing to race through the air with the beast in tow. The creature, covered in blood and flesh, continued its relentless pursuit, leaving a trail of fresh blood in its wake, creating a gruesome and chaotic scene. Warning: hull damage has reached 33. Warning: right propulsion unit is offline. The smoking right propulsion unit gradually dimmed and extinguished, but luckily, there was still an anti-gravity engine at low altitude to compensate for the loss of thrust. The ship skimmed over the streets of the Eastern District, passing through a chaotic battlefield where the military was retreating, with burning streets, people, vehicles, and numerous monsters, all of which he left behind in the blink of an eye. The pilot tightened his grip on the control stick. Another missile was being prepared for launch. He watched the relentless creature on the radar, a glint of cold determination in his eyes. He believed that if he seized the next opportunity, he could eliminate this creature once and for all. Killing it would yield 200 energy points and a dose of new special serum. As he soared through the air, on one side of the street, a group of survivors was hiding in a storefront. One man, hearing the strange roar, peeked outside and saw the monster chasing the ship, immediately screaming, "What the hell is that?" However, ahead, the pilot approached an intersection in the Eastern District's development area, where a massive monument soared into the sky. He used the monument as cover, executing a swift maneuver, and the creature, unable to react in time, crashed into the monument. The white monument shattered with a thunderous sound, and the creature let out a piercing, frenzied howl. This was the moment the pilot had been waiting for. His battleship pierced through the front, missiles and rockets flying out in 3 fiery trails, striking the massive creature on the battlefield. Chapter 83. What meteorite? Blood erupted. The battleship from the royal city skimmed past its body, crashing down and sliding for dozens of meters before gradually stabilizing. Behind him, the enormous hull of the creature collapsed like a massive column. Blood flowed like a river. Its body was riddled with wounds, its head nearly shattered, falling lifelessly onto the square below, completely killed. 200 energy points were instantly credited. The consumption from the recent missile launch was immediately replenished, bringing the total energy points to 863. The 900 energy points needed to upgrade to a level 3 battleship were now within reach. Looking back at the massive carcass, he couldn't help but take a deep breath. What kind of mutated creature could reach such a level? However, alarms were blaring throughout the battleship, and crimson warning lights were flashing wildly. Energy was running low, and the hull was damaged. He pressed the transformation button hard, but the battleship remained unresponsive for a moment. The shockwave from the giant whale creature was astonishing. Although his battleship had stabilized through the repeated impacts, it still experienced internal tremors. The lights inside the ship slowly dimmed, and the central control interface displayed the restarting screen. Taking a deep breath, he decided to open the hatch of the battleship and jumped out. The tail wing was still smoking, and visible cracks appeared on the hull. If it were an ordinary fighter jet, it would have been shattered by now. However, facing a level 4 monster, he felt that his current strength was still far from enough. He needed more energy points. He needed to become stronger. Otherwise, he wouldn't even be able to leave the coastal city, let alone find his parents. He stepped closer to the corpse of the mutated giant. He had just fought fiercely in aerial combat against that level 4 creature and had lost track of direction. There were no gunshots around, nor many monsters or survivors. He pressed his arm against its body. The touch of the black and white scaly armor was somewhat cold. Soon, the serum was completely extracted. Special serum, power type. He glanced at it and quietly tucked the serum into his embrace. Then, he suddenly felt a sense of danger and turned around lightning fast. Not far away, On the rooftop of a building at the corner of the intersection, a towering figure stood, unknown when it had arrived. It was a creature that was neither fully human nor fully beast, its body wrapped in bloody muscle, with a twisted and vicious face. It was a pure mutated being, looking down at him from the rooftop, its eyes flashing with madness. It was a companion of the strange creature he had encountered that day. It had returned to kill him. He instantly gripped his shotgun tightly, shifting his gaze toward the battleship. He was about 20 meters away from it. If he ran with all his might, he could reach it in just a few seconds. However, the strange creature in front of him was holding a twisted and elongated steel bar, and without a doubt, if Wang Chung dared to move, it would not hesitate to swing the steel bar, using its immense strength. This strike would be no weaker than a bullet. If it hit, Wang Chung would be pierced through, ending up nailed to the ground. The arena was deathly silent. Wang Chung did not move, and neither did the creature. The first to act would expose a flaw, giving the opponent an opportunity to strike. Wang Chung did not dare to be careless. He knew that this strange creature was intelligent and extremely powerful, and should not be underestimated. Just then, a car horn sounded from the other side. A dilapidated military vehicle was driving into the standoff between the two parties. The person in the car was none other than Su Ling. Her somewhat youthful face even showed a hint of panic as she leaned out to look at Wang Chung, completely oblivious to the strange creature above her. Wang Chung, are you okay? Wang Chung was a bit surprised, but when Su Ling appeared, the large and muscular strange creature quietly retreated. It knew it had no chance left. With a companion present, Wang Chung could easily make his way to the side of the warship, and once he boarded the warship, no matter how powerful the creature was, it would be at a disadvantage. That was the oppression of technology and caliber. Therefore, it stealthily withdrew into the shadows. Wang Chung did not pursue. His warship was already damaged, and the creature was too small to chase effectively. However, he frowned, looking at Su Ling with some confusion. He had raced ahead with the Voyager. Even if people like Su Xinghai wanted to catch up, they probably could not. How did Su Ling manage to follow him all the way? Wang Chung's impression of Su Ling was mixed, neither particularly good nor bad, generally leaning towards unfavorable. Su Ling, on the other hand, was shocked by the massive corpse of the Voyager before her. Her gaze shifted between the Voyager, Wang Chung, and Wang Cheng's warship. The car stopped in front of Wang Chung, and after a moment of thought, she asked, "Are you okay? I'm sorry about what I said earlier regarding you being a secondary awakener. I didn't think it through." She apologized quickly, seemingly realizing the trouble her careless words had caused Wang Chung. "How did you manage to follow me? What do you want?" Wang Chung asked, getting to the heart of his concern. He remembered they had passed through several streets teeming with monsters. It was almost impossible for anyone to come through that way. Su Ling paused for a moment and said, I wanted to protect you. You are a secondary awakener, and although you might not be able to use your abilities much, they are still very valuable. As for me, I am also an awakener. I have a somewhat special ability that allows some monsters to ignore me. This ability was quite rare. Wang Chung had never heard of any awakener possessing such a fantastical power. But as he listened, his brows furrowed deeply. "Why are you so determined to protect me?" he asked, feeling somewhat helpless. However, Wang Chung had to admit that Su Ling's appearance caused the imposing and strange creature to retreat, which was quite helpful. Su Ling lowered her head and said softly, "Second-level awakeners are rare and precious. I thought that if you survive, maybe in the future, we could find a universal way for everyone to break through to the second-level awakeners through you. I also want to contribute a bit of my strength." Wang Chung looked at her, and faced with this response, he found himself at a loss for words, only letting out a sigh. "All right, just get in the car with me." The battleship had been restarted, and Wang Chung switched it back to car mode, which consumed relatively less energy. However, the main body of the battleship was damaged, and even in car mode, the vehicle no longer looked as smooth and fierce as before. Instead, it bore numerous mottled scars, giving off a post-apocalyptic punk vibe. Once in the car, Wang Chung slowly started the engine. He needed to first meet up with Su Xinghai and others, then gather a total of 900 energy points, upgrade to a third-level battleship after leaving the city, and then head straight to the capital. The vehicle moved slowly through the streets, and the surroundings briefly quieted down. Wang Chung said, "I heard you're not just the daughter of a big shot. Why are you in the military? What about those people from Haicheng University who were with you before? Are they all right?" "They're fine. They should be safe," Su Ling replied. "I also want to contribute my share, and I was already cooperating at the research institute before coming here." Wang Chung was astonished by Su Ling's awareness, but he was more concerned about the information she had inadvertently revealed. "Before? Which before are you referring to? Did you already have abilities and were cooperating with research before the apocalypse?" Su Ling was taken aback, seemingly realizing she had misspoken. Wang Chung turned to look at her intently. He suddenly realized that perhaps the answers he sought about the apocalypse, the secret information that even Zhang Chao from the Research Institute couldn't obtain, were in the mind of this woman beside him. "Are you saying that before the apocalypse officially broke out, Someone had already awakened their abilities? Did you know that the apocalypse was coming? He had just been admiring Su Ling's awareness, but at that moment, this realization inexplicably filled him with anger. Yes, anger. If someone had already awakened their abilities, didn't that mean someone had discovered the virus and the crisis long ago? Someone knew the apocalypse was coming, but didn't warn anyone? No warnings whatsoever. How many people died unnecessarily due to this information gap? If everyone had known the apocalypse was coming, no, perhaps that wouldn't have made things better. The immense panic might have plunged the world into chaos and madness even sooner. However, just then, Wang Cheng's car suddenly halted. Ahead on the street, he saw numerous bodies of survivors sprawled about, not killed by monsters, but dead in the crossfire, as if they were fighting over something. Wang Cheng glanced at Su Ling, then got out of the vehicle to search for their weapons and ammunition. He stumbled upon the leader of a defeated group, who had several bullet holes in him but was still clinging to life. Grasping Wang Cheng's hand, he seemed to regard him as a subordinate, mumbling, "Go get it back. Get it back. That meteorite is mine, it's mine." Wang Cheng furrowed his brow at this. He had thought this group was after supplies or women, but it turned out they were after a meteorite. What meteorite? Was he crazy? Suddenly, Wang Cheng recalled the massive fireball that had fallen from the sky. Could it be that it wasn't debris from a satellite or space station after all? Chapter 84. I want your people and your vehicle. Su Ling also got out of the car from behind, looked at the man on the ground, and shook her head, saying, "He's done for." Indeed, after mumbling a couple more words in a delirious state, the man's head fell to the side, lifeless. Wang Cheng turned to her and asked, "Do you know what that thing that fell from the sky is? And what are the experts desperately trying to dig up in the giant pit?" Su Ling shook her head, replying, "I'm just as confused as you are. I have no idea what's happening." Wang Cheng paused for a moment and said, "Since you had abilities even before the apocalypse and were accepted into the research institute, do you know what this apocalypse is all about? Were there already people starting to mutate back then?" At this moment, the street was littered with bodies, and the setting sun was gradually fading, casting a blood-red glow that nearly obscured the unmoving clouds in the sky. Amidst the desolation and ruin, Wang Cheng stood up and stared intently at Su Ling, as if he wanted to devour her with his gaze. "You better tell me the truth. I'm not exactly a good person." Su Ling seemed to realize that it was just her, a young girl, and Wang Cheng, a level 2 awakened. If he truly wanted to do something to her, she might not even have a chance to resist. She took a step back, glanced at Wang Cheng, and said, "I don't know. All I know is that some people mutated a long time ago, but I really don't understand what this apocalypse is about. I don't know how things got to this point, and neither does my father. Otherwise, how could I not be with him? When the apocalypse broke out, I should have been taken away. All I know is that my father was very scared. I've never seen him that scared before. But no matter what I asked him, he wouldn't say a word and refused to tell me anything." Su Ling's response caused a slight tremor in Wang Cheng's heart. He realized that his emotions had been a bit over the top. As Su Ling said, her background was different from that of a commoner like him. If they had known about the apocalypse in advance, how could her father only have sent someone to fetch her after it broke out? This indicated that they too were unaware of how dire the situation would become. Since Su Ling's father was a prominent figure in High City, if he was that frightened, what in the world had happened? Wang Cheng took a deep breath, scanned the surrounding street, and quietly walked toward his battleship, with Su Ling following closely behind. After this conversation, Su Ling seemed a bit afraid of Wang Cheng. This somewhat naive young girl seemed to realize at this moment that the person sitting next to her was not just a rare second-level awakened being, but also a ruthless individual who could kill without hesitation and confront fourth-level mutated creatures in this desolate wilderness with no one around. If he really wanted to do something to her, he could easily do so. However, Wang Cheng was not focused on such thoughts. He felt a heavy weight in his heart, a wave of great unease rising within him. As he moved forward silently, he increasingly felt the urgency of time. He needed to level up quickly and find his parents. His speed gradually increased, wanting to quickly reunite with Su Xinghai and the others. But not far down the road, he heard a series of gunshots from the side of the street. A group of survivors was gathered at the entrance of a clothing store, firing inside. While those hiding in the store shouted desperately, "I'll give you stones. Please stop shooting, I beg you please." Stones. Wang Cheng's heart skipped a beat, and he slowly reduced his speed. He noticed these people, and they noticed him too. They were a group of young doomsday thugs, wearing clothes they had scavenged from who knows where, colorful and mismatched, holding various types of weapons, roaring and shooting into the building. As a vehicle approached, the leader, a young man with white hair, glanced over. His eyes lit up when he first saw Wang Cheng's vehicle, and upon seeing Su Ling inside, his eyes nearly sparkled with excitement. Though Wang Cheng's car was battered from its confrontation with the navigators, it highlighted a rugged, post-apocalyptic style, giving off a sense of a hard-earned, weather texture. Su Ling inside the car was undeniably beautiful, with both striking features and an attractive figure. Wang Cheng sometimes couldn't help but steal a few extra glances at her, let alone someone like this thug. In an instant, the thug changed his mind. He turned around and sprayed bullets toward the front of Wang Cheng's vehicle, the bullets hitting the asphalt and kicking up a cloud of dust. Facing Wang Cheng and the others, he sneered, "You're unlucky to run into me. Get down from the car. I want your vehicle and everything inside it. Hurry up, or I'll smash your head into the ground." At that moment, a middle-aged man also emerged from the clothing store behind him, being pointed at with guns by the thugs group. He looked sorrowful, holding something in his arms but refusing to show it. He cried out, "Why can't you stop shooting? My mother was shot dead by you." One of the thugs picked up a stone from the ground and threw it at him, causing the man to stumble and sway. Seeing this, the others laughed loudly. The white-haired thug turned and glared, spitting, "How dare you try to take my stuff? Did we kill her? You brought this on yourself, useless fool. If I didn't see you as an awakened being, I wouldn't even let a burden like you follow me. Now hurry up and hand over what you have." Wang Cheng's gaze sharpened slightly. The arrogance and hubris of the white-haired man made him quite displeased. However, at that moment, his gaze also fell upon the middle-aged man who wore a sorrowful and troubled expression. As soon as that man stepped out, he heard the system's notification sound. Irregular energy crystal detected. The message was very simple, with little introduction, but it was something he had never encountered before, instantly piquing Wang Cheng's interest. Su Ling beside him whispered, "What should we do? What should we do?" Wang Cheng replied coldly, "He wants to blow my head off, so I have no choice but to take him down." The black sedan slowly moved forward. The white-haired man was speaking to the middle-aged man behind him. But upon turning his head and seeing the scene, an unpleasant expression immediately appeared on his face. He shouted, "What the hell is this? I told you to stop. And you still dare to drive forward? Do you even know how to write the word death? Hurry up, I'll give you one last chance. Get out of the car. Hand over your woman and your vehicle, or I won't hesitate to blow your head off. Do you know why you're still alive? It's because I've taken a liking to your car and don't want to shatter your windows. Don't test my patience." His words were extremely arrogant, and those around him began to fire warning shots, while a few of his subordinates stepped forward. Two of them approached the middle-aged man and knocked him to the ground with their gun stocks. The middle-aged man seemed to be an awakened one as well. Yet he dared not resist, cowering in fear while still unwilling to part with the greed in his heart, hesitating to surrender what he was holding. Such a person was truly pitiable, afraid of death, lacking courage, yet thoroughly greedy. As the white-haired man had said, half of his misfortune might have been brought upon him by the white-haired man, but the other half stemmed from his own character and greed. He had no one to blame but himself. Meanwhile, the other two men approached Wang Cheng's car and began to rudely bang on the window, shouting, "Get down. Are you deaf? Can't you hear? Boss, the woman in this car is quite a beauty. After you're done, can you let the brothers have a go?" Outside the car, the white-haired man was greedily eyeing Su Ling inside, his gaze wandering over her sensitive areas. Clearly, this was not their first time engaging in such behavior. Coming from a noble background, Su Ling had never endured such humiliation. At this moment, gritting her teeth, she was ready to explode with anger, exclaiming, "I want to kill these thugs." As she prepared to pull open the car door, Wang Cheng quickly intervened, grabbing her. "What are you doing?" Su Ling said, somewhat displeased. Her anger had risen, and the fear from earlier had vanished. After all, she was just a young girl acting on impulse, without much thought or consideration. Wang Cheng replied, "You don't need to intervene." With that, the two white-haired subordinates were taken aback and retreated in surprise, as a dark rifle suddenly protruded from the car, directly aimed at the white-haired man, and opened fire. Chapter 85. Impressive woman. These men could never have imagined that a car could suddenly reveal a rifle and unleash a barrage of fire. A violent thug was shot through directly, blood and flesh splattered as he fell to the ground, instantly killed on the spot. The white-haired man behind reacted quite quickly. Although his face was contorted with shock, he rolled to the side at the first opportunity. A barrage of bullets swept through, but surprisingly, he wasn't shot dead on the spot, only hit in the thigh, bleeding profusely. If this were before the apocalypse, anyone firing like that would have sent others running in fear. But this group of white-haired individuals were true criminals, having no doubt stained their hands with the blood of countless innocents. At this moment, there was no fear in them. The white-haired man's leg was rendered useless, and all that surged on his face was a mix of intense pain and rage as he screamed, "Kill him! Kill that bastard!" His subordinates opened fire one after another. Their weapons were a hodgepodge: military guns, police firearms, rifles, and handguns. But overall, their firepower was considerable, with almost everyone armed. Given this, the middle-aged man, although an awakened one, didn't dare confront this group of thugs. As a first-level awakened individual, he was still no match for concentrated gunfire. Coupled with his lack of courage, watching his elderly mother being killed and then surrendering to the enemy, there was nothing surprising about his actions. These people had filthy mouths. Bullets rained down, striking the vehicle of Wang Cheng, making a popping sound. But unfortunately, This vehicle wasn't a real car, but a battleship, specifically a second-level battleship, made entirely of bulletproof materials. These small-caliber bullets couldn't possibly penetrate it unless fired at a single point continuously for an extended period. But that was impossible. Wang Chung sat in the vehicle, firing crazily. "Shoot all you want. I'm in a bulletproof vehicle. I'll stand here and let you shoot. Let's see if you die first or I do." The thugs were indeed fierce. Not retreating even in such circumstances, at most seeking cover to evade while still engaging in a fierce shootout with Wang Chung. At that moment, with the thugs' attention drawn to Wang Chung, the middle-aged awakened man in the corner let out a shriek. Nobody was paying attention to him anymore. He struggled to stand up, clutching his head and running forward with his head down, as if by doing so, he could avoid seeing the bullets or the gun muzzles pointed at him. Thinking no one would shoot him and that the bullets wouldn't hit him, in the midst of his frantic screams, he attempted to escape amidst the chaos. However, the white-haired man had been watching him closely. Dragging his broken leg, he leaped from the ground and tackled the man in front of him, engaging in a fierce struggle amidst his frantic shouts. Su Ling observed this chaotic scene with a frown. What is wrong with these people? This is humanity, or rather, this is a portrayal of the majority, either becoming self-serving thugs or being cowardly and fearful. Wang Chung watched the middle-aged man grappling with the white-haired thug. The latter, as an awakened individual, seemed to completely forget to use his awakening abilities in the fight, and was almost being choked to death by the white-haired man, who had the advantage despite his broken leg. This is the most authentic portrayal of ordinary people in the apocalypse. Even with a bit of strength, they cannot change their own lives. They can only watch helplessly as their mother is killed, and even watch themselves being choked to death. Would life be better without a system or a rebirth? Wang Chung doesn't know. Su Ling, however, feels a mix of emotions. When she was wandering outside, she was always under someone else's protection. Later, she arrived at a temporary survivor gathering point in Haicheng, where her days could be described as smooth sailing. Although she had experienced survival during the apocalypse, she had never witnessed the true variety of life in such a scenario. At this moment, she can't quite express her feelings. After a while, she softly says, "Thank you, Wang Chung. It's nothing, he provoked me to. If he wants to kill me, he must be prepared to be killed by me." Wang Cheng's voice suddenly cut off. His gaze had caught sight of a fast-moving figure, darting into the battlefield like lightning. For a brief moment, he thought it might be a companion of the strange creature, but upon closer inspection, it turned out to be a woman with short hair, wearing a khaki military half-sleeve shirt. Her perfect body curve was evident as she ran, but her speed was astonishing. Almost like a flash of lightning, even faster than the mutated house cat he had seen earlier. She came rushing from a distance, cutting into the fray, avoiding the direct battlefield where Wang Chung was firing, and directly approached the scuffle between the white-haired figure and the middle-aged man. With one kick, she sent the white-haired figure flying off the middle-aged man. The force was so great that it was hard to imagine she was a woman. The white-haired figure let out a scream and fell to the ground. This woman was an awakener. Moreover, she was very powerful. Just from that series of moves, it was clear that her awakening ability, whatever it may be, greatly enhanced her physical capabilities, and she was also skilled in combat, making her one of the most formidable female awakeners Wang Chung had ever seen. Meanwhile, the middle-aged man on the ground was momentarily stunned. His reaction was slower than that of the white-haired figure. Having just narrowly escaped being choked to death, his thoughts were chaotic, and he hadn't even noticed the woman's agile and powerful approach. Now, seeing a woman in front of him, he felt a courage he hadn't experienced before, extending his hand to choke her neck and kill her, hoping to escape in the process. "Are you here to steal my things too? I'll choke you to death," the middle-aged man shouted in frustration, finally finding someone he could bully. A small woman like this was certainly no match for him. He could do whatever he wanted to her. The ugliness and depravity of human nature seemed to be vividly displayed in this man. But unfortunately, the middle-aged man had no idea what he was dealing with. As he raised his hands, the woman's small hands swiftly grabbed them, and with a crisp snap, his arms were twisted and broken. His roar turned into a scream. The short-haired woman expressionlessly lifted his shirt and pulled out a small, unremarkable black stone from inside. The stone indeed resembled a fragment of a meteorite, extremely irregular, about the size of half a palm. The middle-aged man guessed correctly. The short-haired woman was indeed after his stone. Wang Chung narrowed his eyes. This woman had a clear target and timed her entry perfectly. She had likely been lurking nearby, only showing herself now to take advantage of the chaos between Wang Chung and the white-haired man, aiming to seize the object for herself. Wang Chung felt a surge of irritation. Was he being used as a pawn? What surprised Wang Chung, however, was that as the meteorite was brought out, his system emitted a notification sound for the second time, this time providing detailed information. "Dear host, irregular energy crystal detected. Scanning in progress. Scanning complete. The current crystal contains a high level of energy, expected to be usable as a power source for warships. capable of sustaining full power operation for 307 hours in warship mode and 627 hours in vehicle mode. So that was why the previous system notification was so brief. It hadn't T-scanned the physical object. Now that the meteorite was out, detailed information appeared. Upon hearing the system notification, Wang Cheng's heart raced. Initially, he was merely curious about the stone and meteorite the others were fighting over. As he watched the middle-aged man attempt to flee, he felt indifferent. If he could catch up, he would, but if not, it didn't matter. But this was different. Was this thing really that impressive? 307 hours of full power operation in warship mode? What did that mean? Wang Cheng had filled up on fuel before this journey, and after driving in vehicle mode for over 10 hours and using the warship for several hours, he had already consumed more than half of his energy. That small stone contained such immense energy. If he could get his hands on it, he wouldn't have to worry about energy for the warship for a while, nor would he need to waste precious energy points to recharge it. He had to have that stone. Wang Cheng's warship instantly turned and accelerated, heading straight for the white-haired man on the ground and the fierce awakened woman who had just obtained the irregular energy crystal. Chapter 86. No matter who you are. The sky was filled with a blood-red hue, casting a dark and oppressive atmosphere. Outside the clothing store, chaos reigned. The rioters had been scattered by Wang Cheng's gunfire, leaving a scene of devastation with few still standing. The white-haired man had one of his legs shot off by Wang Cheng's mounted rifle and was kicked by the fierce woman, writhing on the ground in agony, yet still fixated on his meteorite. As he saw the woman pulling out the stone and attempting to escape, he struggled forward, futilely reaching out. But at that moment, a vehicle came from behind, its heavy body crushing him. The thug coughed up blood and lay still. Perhaps, for ordinary survivors, or even weak awakeners like middle-aged men, the white-haired individuals are the most ruthless among the ruthless, an insurmountable barrier. However, in the face of violence at a higher level, they are nothing more than insignificant beings. Failing to grasp the situation leads to dire consequences. The vehicle of Wang Cheng is rapidly pursuing ahead. His warship accelerates quickly, and from the lowered window, he calls out, "Miss, what you're doing is a bit unethical. This group wants to kill me, and I'm taking them out. You're just trying to benefit from the chaos?" The short-haired woman, agile in form, has already jumped onto the roof of a scrapped SUV to one side. She turns her head to look at Wang Cheng and his vehicle, her gaze briefly resting on the mounted rifle. It must be said that her figure is exceptional, and her features are quite striking. Standing on the car roof with that commanding presence, she could easily captivate anyone's attention. Wang Cheng, however, remains unfazed, expressionless as he raises his dual rocket launcher in a show of force. "If you don't hand over the item obediently, I'll blow you up." This irregular energy crystal is something Wang Cheng must have. With it, the energy consumption issue for the journey to Fengtian, which has been a constant worry for him, would be resolved. Yet, the woman seems to realize her disadvantage. After a moment of silence, seeing Wang Cheng's threat, she says, "This thing is useless in your hands. I'm military personnel. If you give it to me, it can be utilized to its greater potential." Wang Cheng can tell she is military just by her uniform. "And how do you know it won't be useful in my hands? Perhaps I could make better use of it than the military." Wang Cheng immediately responds. He has always had a good impression of people like Zhao Nan, Li Xinqing, and Zhang Ruizhen from the military, so he refrains from firing for the time being. But the woman merely shakes her head and replies, "You can't have it. It can't be entrusted to you." Her tone leaves little room for negotiation. Wang Cheng furrows his brows, his tone growing colder. "What? You're robbing me and claim to have a reason not to give it back? What if I insist on taking it? Then you can try." At that moment, the woman leaps off the car roof, springing onto the roof of another vehicle 5 meters away, agile as a hunter in the jungle, moving swiftly through the suburban area. Wang Cheng's anger flares up. What is this? The people and items he has taken down are now being claimed as hers? Wang Cheng is not someone to be trifled with. He had been considerate due to people like Zhang Ruizhen. Since this woman refuses to reason, he decides not to hold back. "Let's see if my warship is faster or if you can run faster." With a slam on the accelerator, the black warship, shaped like a sedan, speeds out like a black lightning bolt, crashing through the vehicles blocking the way ahead as he pursues the woman aggressively. Although Wang Cheng showcased a dual-barreled rocket launcher, he had no intention of firing it. Firstly, the ammunition for the rocket launcher was precious. Secondly, its destructive power was immense. Wang Cheng was genuinely worried that a single shot might obliterate that woman along with his precious energy crystal, rendering all his efforts futile. As he watched the chase unfold, the middle-aged man on the ground wore a face of despair, his expression a complex mix of sadness. In his 40s, he appeared as lost and hopeless as a child. Suddenly, he turned to see the white-haired figure and began to laugh and cry simultaneously, raising his hands to frantically beat the unmoving body of the white-haired person until it was unrecognizable. This was the only thing he dared to do. Meanwhile, Wang Cheng had already begun speeding through the city. With nitrogen boosting the acceleration and the engine roaring, he tightly pursued the woman ahead. Su Ling could not help but grip the armrest, her gaze fixed on the striking figure in front of her, her brows furrowed. Since she first laid eyes on the woman, she had remained silent until now, suddenly exclaiming, "Wait, Wang Cheng. That person looks somewhat familiar. I finally remembered who she is." Wang Cheng was currently using his rifle to shoot at the woman who had attempted to hide in a building but had returned to the street instead. The woman was incredibly agile, seemingly full of energy, using the complex street layout and alleys to evade him, making it difficult for Wang Cheng to catch up directly. He immediately asked, "Who is she?" "She is Shubing, a prominent figure in the Temporary Survivor Gathering Point Research Institute and military in Haicheng, known as the First Awakened One." Wang Cheng's hand on the steering wheel paused slightly. This was the first time he had heard the name Shubing, but he had heard the titles associated with her countless times. Wu Haiqing and Zhang Chao had both mentioned that there was a key figure among the highly regarded Awakened Ones in Qinghai, who had undergone human experiments to stimulate the abilities of secondary Awakened Ones, and that person was Haiqing's First Awakened One. So it was this woman? No wonder her physical abilities were formidable, overshadowing most awakened individuals Wang Cheng had encountered. No wonder she was so arrogant. She indeed was someone of significance. However, Wang Cheng shook his head and said, "I don't care who she is. That thing belongs to me, and she took it directly. So she needs to return it to me obediently." As they continued the chase, the surrounding city streets grew increasingly desolate and silent, with hardly any figures in sight. Terrifying giant pits appeared on the ground, with soil turned over. The neatly constructed streets once made by humans were now shattered and unrecognizable, resembling vast fields after being plowed. This environment had little effect on Shubing ahead, but for Wang Cheng, who was driving on the uneven surface, it was far from friendly. The ground was riddled with deep, dark pits, causing Wang Cheng's vehicle to sway left and right as he struggled to keep up. At this moment, Shubing accelerated again, clearly hoping to use the advantageous terrain to shake off Wang Cheng and the others behind her. Her lips curled into a confident smile. The survivor was impressive, managing to chase this far. But this was the limit. These meteor fragments were treasures of the military and research institutions. Key research targets that absolutely could not be seized by these ordinary survivors. That would be a tremendous loss. However, she suddenly heard a sound behind her. As she turned around, she was stunned by the sight before her. The black sedan she confidently thought she could shake off had suddenly transformed into a fighter jet, taking off from the ground. The left tail was smoking, but its speed far exceeded that of a car, an exaggerated display. In an instant, it swept over the ravaged city streets, accompanied by a buzzing sound, and directly hovered above her head. Then, the hatch opened, and Wang Cheng leaped down, landing directly on top of her, using sheer force to pin her down on the roof of the car. "Ah!" Shu Bing let out a roar, struggling like a mother leopard. However, Wang Cheng was a second-tier evolved being, no matter how strong Shu Bing's overall combat power was. She was crushed and unable to move by Wang Cheng's sheer strength. Shu Bing never expected that the survivor in the car was such a powerful awakened being who could overpower her. She also never thought that a car could transform into a plane and come charging at her. At this moment, not only was Shu Bing dumbfounded, but even Su Ling was left speechless, as if in a dream. Shu Bing was well known in the survivor gathering point in Haicheng as the strongest awakened being, a precious existence. Yet now, she was pinned down by Wang Cheng, unable to break free despite her struggles. Su Ling's eyes quickly sparkled. With such power, who would believe him if he claimed he was not a second-tier awakened being? Wang Cheng was undoubtedly a true second-tier awakened being. Chapter 87. Level 5 Hunting Ground. The scene was extremely chaotic. Shu Bing struggled desperately, but no matter how hard she tried, Wang Cheng kept her firmly pressed to the ground. The overwhelming force made it impossible for her to escape. She widened her eyes, looking at Wang Cheng in disbelief, and at the suspended fighter jet behind him, saying, "This is impossible. How could your strength overpower me? You are definitely not an ordinary survivor. Such equipment cannot be owned by survivors. Let me go? Who on earth are you?" Wang Cheng took a deep breath and replied, "I am someone who had treasures stolen from me." He also felt it was a bit absurd. The beauty before him was indeed the infamous first awakened being rumored among the survivors in Haicheng, and most importantly, she was currently pinned down by him. It seemed she had not yet reached the level of a second-tier awakened being. After injecting the strength serum, not to mention anything else, his sheer strength had already reached the level of a second-tier awakened being, easily allowing him to overpower her. As the saying goes, brute force can break through any cleverness. No matter how capable Shu Bing was, she was instantly subdued by Wang Cheng. On the battleship behind them, Su Ling felt a mix of joy and complexity. She confirmed that Wang Cheng must be a second-tier awakened being, yet she was very worried about the current situation. Shu Bing also comes from a military background, and now she is being pressed down by Wang Cheng. How can this situation be salvaged? Moreover, This is Su Ling's first time experiencing Wang Cheng's warship mode. Hovering at low altitude, the dim operating interface inside the warship exudes a sense of groundbreaking technology. Su Ling, being knowledgeable, has never seen similar equipment or aircraft, especially this fighter jet, which has a glide takeoff design but can take off and land vertically. Hovering at low altitude, how is this possible? However, this scene did not last long. Wang Cheng restrained Xu Bing with one hand and directly took the irregular energy crystal from her hand with the other. The touch was somewhat cold. It looked like a stone, but it felt completely different in hand, more like a kind of jade, with a sensation as if some living creature was moving inside, making it particularly unique. Wang Cheng was somewhat excited. After confirming with the system again, the previous scan results were correct. With this object, Wang Cheng's warship could gain significant endurance. With this, he could even fly all the way from High City to Fengtian. This was crucial. This is also why Wang Cheng was so determined to obtain it. It meant he could reach Fengtian in the shortest time possible and find his parents. Without this, he would have to rely on vehicle mode to cover over 300 kilometers, stopping to find gas stations to refuel and switch energy sources, which would consume an immense amount of time and energy compared to having this object. It's like comparing the underground to the sky. This should be handed to the military. Who are you? Is there really someone as skilled as you in High City? Xu Bing was still struggling. She indeed came from the military and didn't know what it meant to give up, working hard for her goals. Although she was surprised by Wang Cheng's combat power and the equipment he possessed, she still believed that such things should be given to the military and research institutions. However, Wang Cheng's attention shifted at that moment. He suddenly looked up. Not only him, but Su Ling and Xu Bing also fell silent. They all heard a sound. A massive rumbling noise was getting closer. By now, the sky had almost completely darkened, and the outskirts of the city were even dimmer. With the warship's lights, they could vaguely see the end of the long street they were on, where clouds of dust were rolling in, and the ground suddenly bulged as if it were swelling. Cracking open, a low, unknown rumbling sound was rapidly approaching from that direction. Su Ling screamed, "Come back! Wang Cheng, it's a level 5 mutated creature. It's a burrower, hurry! Get up here!" Her expression twisted in terror, and her beautiful face showed an unprecedented look of panic. But her warning flashed through Wang Cheng's mind like lightning. He recalled the news he had heard earlier. Another level 5 creature, the burrower, had attacked the head of the evacuation team outside High City University, causing severe losses. Now, they are located on the outskirts of the city, which is precisely where the main force of their earlier evacuation was earlier today. The formidable presence of the level 4 mutated creature, the Voyager, is still vivid in their minds. As for the level 5 mutated creature, they have only encountered one, which is the mutated giant tree in the university. It swept through the university and the nearby commercial area, and now it is set to devastate the entire city. The military is helpless against it, forced to retreat and abandon the urban area, moving towards the mountains. What about this level 5 creature? A chill surged through them. The ground was boiling. The asphalt roads and sidewalks constructed by humans were rapidly disintegrating, as something unimaginably massive was advancing relentlessly beneath the surface. No wonder there was no sound around. Both humans and monsters seemed to have vanished. No wonder there were giant pits everywhere on the ground. It turned out that this urban area was a hunting ground for the level 5 mutated creature. All life activities above would become targets for this level 5 behemoth. He quickly pulled Xu Bing onto the warship, hastily taking out thick ropes to bind her tightly, all the while keeping a close eye on the massive bulge approaching in the distance, his heart pounding. He had no choice. Xu Bing was uncooperative and struggling. If he didn't secure her, she would wreak havoc aboard the ship and endanger them all. Su Ling watched this scene with a mix of fear and concern, not stopping Wang Cheng but shouting, "Hurry! Hurry up!" Alarms blared on the warship, and the radar showed an extraordinarily large red dot approaching rapidly. This indicated that a terrifying creature was getting closer. At the moment the red dot aligned with the ship's hull, Wang Cheng abruptly pushed the control stick, and the warship surged forward at high speed. Just as he did, the ground beneath him erupted violently, dirt flying everywhere, and a massive white creature leaped out of the ground. It was as terrifying as the sandworms from the movie Dune, lacking eyes or any discernible organs. Its body was pale, enormous, and round, with a gaping maw filled with razor-sharp teeth, large enough to swallow the entire warship in one bite. If Wang Cheng hadn't reacted quickly, he would have been consumed instantly. The hard ground appeared as fragile as paper before it, and after a failed attack, it leaped back into the ground, advancing rapidly, soon leaping up again, howling as it lunged at Wang Cheng. Its speed was astonishing, and the warship had been damaged in previous battles, unable to keep up. Wang Cheng launched a missile in an attempt to block it. However, this missile, which could shake a 50-meter-long terrifying Voyager, had little effect on this level 5 monster, barely leaving a bloody wound on its pale body, and it charged forward. Warning: severe damage to the left side of the warship. Warning: the battleship's hull was severely damaged and lost control. It felt as if the city was struck by a giant elephant. The ship suddenly spiraled out of control and crashed to the ground, its tail rising in a cloud of thick smoke. What was most terrifying was that the level 5 creature was still chasing from behind. This burrower was at least over 100 meters long. It was a true ruler of the earth. Being rated as level 5 by the military meant it had at least the astonishing lethality comparable to the mutated giant trees from the era of the university. The city quickly switched to its tank form, racing wildly down the uneven streets. However, the more it ran, the more frantically the level 5 burrower chased, clinging tightly to its back. Damn it, how could they shake off this monster? This was not a creature that could simply be confronted head-on. Just then, Xu Bing, who was tightly bound in the back but had not been gagged, suddenly shouted, "Stop the vehicle! Stop!" The city was taken aback. In this situation, with the burrowers still in pursuit, stopping was tantamount to seeking death. The city was sure that as soon as it dared to stop, the burrower would certainly swallow them whole. With life and death hanging in the balance, who would dare to stop? However, Xu Bing insisted, "We need to stop. I've seen its data. The burrower has no eyes and cannot see us or the surrounding environment. It uses sonar-like organs to perceive its surroundings and track its prey. Your vehicle is too large and constantly moving, which makes it a supersized target for it. Only by stopping can we disappear from its biological radar and shake off its pursuit." In the outskirts of the East District, it had already become a hunting ground for the level 5 mutated creature. At that moment, the city and its battleship were becoming its prey, racing desperately. Xu Bing was bound tightly with cargo ropes, and despite her strength, she couldn't break free in a short time unless she had the brute force of someone like the city. At this moment, she gave up struggling and anxiously looked out the window. Behind them, the ground bulged, and the massive burrower was speeding towards them, beneath the dark sky. The scene was extremely horrifying. She nervously said, "I have no reason to deceive you. I'm tied up here by you. What good would deceiving you do? It would only harm myself." Without Xu Bing needing to say it, the city had already thought of this. The first awakener of this temporary survivor gathering point had no reason to lie. In this current situation, they were already in it together. If the battleship was swallowed, both the city inside and Xu Bing would be doomed. Therefore, the city gritted its teeth and decided to trust this woman. The burrower was indeed clinging too tightly. The battleship had not yet had the chance to replace the irregular energy crystal, and its energy was rapidly depleting. Most critically, the battleship had sustained damage from previous battles and had just been violently struck by the burrower, making matters worse. At this rate, being caught was only a matter of time. The city initially intended to use the battleship's speed to quickly leave the area, but from the current situation, the hunting ground of this level 5 creature is unknown in size. As they travel, everything around is eerily silent, with no living humans or even monsters in sight. Even the crimson spores seem to have vanished, highlighting the immense presence of this level 5 being. At this moment, the vehicle suddenly swerved and charged into a 3-story building on one side. Behind them, the burrowing creature relentlessly pursued, crashing through and causing the entire building to buckle as it passed beneath, shaking the foundation violently. The structure trembled severely, and the top began to collapse inch by inch. With clouds of dust rising, the massive burrowing creature broke through the surface, its howls echoing disturbingly, its pale body resembling a giant insect as it partially emerged from the ground, thrashing and writhing in a frenzy while its head swung back and forth, searching for a target. The moment it burst forth from the dust, it lost the target it had just been focused on. Lacking eyes, it could not see, only sensing the wounded warship of the King City parked in the shadows between two buildings. The crew remained inside the vehicle, holding their breath and staring at it. It turned out that Xu Bing was telling the truth. This monster had no vision. It relied on sound to locate its prey. Just moments ago, the King City had drawn it in by crashing through a building, creating a larger commotion. As a cover, he successfully turned off the engine and hid, and the burrowing creature truly could not find them anymore. This thing possessed an almost supernatural ability to hear. Su Ling felt a chill run down her spine. If someone had told her before the apocalypse that such a creature existed on Earth, she would never have believed it, suspecting they had pulled pictures from some movie. Yet now, this unimaginable giant appeared right before them. This was biological sonar. The burrowing creature had once been an inconspicuous earthworm. No one knew how it evolved into such a massive and terrifying level 5 creature. It had become almost a different species from an earthworm. Xu Bing was also gazing at the monster in the distance. The King City felt a shiver of fear, involuntarily recalling the giant tree at Haicheng University. That too had mutated from a potted plant. Who would have thought? The burrowing creature lost its target and flitted around aimlessly like a headless fly, occasionally diving underground or suddenly leaping back to the surface. The hard ground and soil seemed like a vast sea of sand to it, allowing it to move freely in and out, traversing effortlessly. Its body appeared soft, but was incredibly tough and resilient. This was its hunting ground. It was not willing to give up and circled around. The king's city took a deep breath and glanced at Shu Bing beside him. Are you really the first awakened one? First? I wouldn't call myself that. I advise you to let me go immediately. And who exactly are you? Shu Bing coldly regarded the king's city, seemingly displeased with him. Are you also an awakened one? How could your strength possibly exceed mine? But she was also skeptical. The king's city's individual strength was formidable, even surpassing hers, not to mention this vehicle resembling a transformer, which was beyond comprehension. Shu Bing had never heard of any military equipment possessing such capabilities. Wang Qing shook his head and said, "Why should I tell you? But you seem to know very well what this stone is. Did you already know it would fall from the sky?" "I don't know," Shu Bing replied, leaning back and shaking her head, then continued to struggle against Wang Qing's bindings. She was still trying hard to break free. Su Ling watched this scene, somewhat astonished, and opened her mouth to say something, but was shot a glare by Wang Qing, quickly becoming obedient. However, her action caught Shu Bing's attention. The woman looked at Su Ling and said, "Looking at your outfit, you must be a soldier too, right? Why are you helping this person? Hurry and help me get free. Tell me his background." Su Ling opened her mouth, but before she could say anything, she saw Wang Qing take a rag used for cleaning battleships from the corner, crumple it up, and stuff it into Shu Bing's mouth. This guy wanted to fool Su Ling, and Wang Qing couldn't stand it, so he directly silenced her. Su Ling was dumbfounded. She couldn't believe her eyes. This first awakened person from the temporary survivor base in Haiqing, admired and flattered by many awakened ones, was now captured by Wang Qing. And not only was she tied up, but also had a rag stuffed in her mouth. However, Shu Bing was an awakened one, and with her powerful body, she managed to use her mouth's muscles to spit out the rag in one go. "You dare to stuff a rag in my mouth? Do you know what you're doing?" She muffled. Wang Qing was genuinely surprised this time, but his reaction was quick. He bent down, picked up the rag, shoved it back in, and pulled out a large roll of tape from the vehicle to seal it tightly. This time, Shu Bing couldn't spit it out again and could only make muffled sounds. Su Ling watched as Shu Bing's eyes widened in anger. Now it's peaceful," Wang Qing said seriously. "Don't worry, I won't kill you. You're with the military, and I know quite a few military people myself. Although you tried to take my stuff, I can overlook that. Besides, I admire the fact that you're willing to cooperate with military research. So I won't do anything to you. This is just to keep you honest. Once I meet up with the military, I'll hand you over to them." Wang Qing spoke sincerely, then leaned his head out to look outside the vehicle. His words were truthful. He had no intention of harming such a powerful awakened individual, as it wouldn't benefit him at all. Moreover, although Shu Bing had taken his belongings, it was not for herself but to send the meteorite for research, which earned her some respect from Wang Qing. Of course, that was where it ended. And besides, Wang Qing was heading to a different place soon, so he didn't have to worry about the consequences of his actions, as he wouldn't be around in a couple of days. Outside the window, the diggers had lost their target and were gradually disappearing into the distance. Wang Qing started the vehicle and moved slowly forward. This time, he tried to keep his speed as low as possible, moving cautiously and stopping intermittently, finally not startling the level 5 behemoth. In the silence and darkness of the street, Wang Qing moved forward slowly. The vehicle's speed dropped to a crawl, and even with the diggers' biological radar, they couldn't detect Wang Qing's presence. As they drove a distance forward, Wang Qing was surprised to see a large convoy ahead on the bumpy street. The convoy moved cautiously, albeit in a grand manner, advancing at a turtle's pace. It seemed that there were several groups of survivors, with the largest group comprising 7 or 8 modified vehicles, some of which were equipped with glaring heavy machine guns at the front. The other groups of survivors, clearly fearful, dared not move on their own and timidly followed behind the front group. It was evident that the stronger teams were at the front, while the weaker ones trailed behind. They all seemed aware of the presence of the diggers and had figured out certain patterns, proceeding with caution. Wang Qing's battered vehicle caught the attention of the survivors here. His speed was relatively faster, as he was eager to reunite with Su Xinghai and others to upgrade their warship and head straight to their destination. Unwilling to move at such a slow pace, he prepared to overtake them. Initially, everything seemed fine, but as he passed the second largest survivor convoy, someone in that vehicle glanced over and, upon seeing the mountain of supplies piled in Wang Qing's vehicle, their eyes lit up. Suddenly, they accelerated and blocked Wang Qing's path. As the saying goes, fortune often lies in risk. The person inside the vehicle rolled down the window, leaned out, and waved a rifle, sternly ordering, "Kid, get out of the car, I want yours, or I'll take your life." Hearing this, Wang Qing frowned and rolled down his window, replying, "Are you looking to die?" Just as the leader of that convoy was about to respond, one of his subordinates glanced into Wang Qing's vehicle and seemed to recognize Shu Bing, exclaiming, "Boss, I think I know the tied-up person in that car. You know her? Someone you know?" The leader was clearly taken aback. "That's great. We have even more reason to rob them." But the subordinate hesitated, saying, "I saw that woman, who was tied up, from a distance at the temporary survivor base in Haicheng. She seems to be the treasure of the Haicheng Research Institute, the first awakener, Xu Bing." "What?" The leader was shocked, his eyes nearly popping out. Wang Cheng furrowed his brows. His vehicle was blocked by the other party. This place was also a hunting ground for diggers, and he didn't dare to move too much. He rolled down his window to confront them. Under normal circumstances, he wouldn't bother with them at all, but unexpectedly, as soon as he said a word, those people started mumbling amongst themselves, not making their intentions clear. The previously arrogant leader's face visibly paled. Upon hearing his subordinate's words, his first reaction was disbelief. "No way. Are you kidding? The first awakener of Haicheng is a figure of legend, known to everyone in Haicheng. How could we encounter her here, especially in such a tied-up state? Isn't this too efficient?" However, after having his subordinate confirm the identity, the subordinate was certain that the woman in the vehicle was indeed Xu Bing. At this point, the leader was dumbfounded. Who did he just block? Who could it be that captured the first awakened one from Haicheng? Cold sweat instantly dripped down his back. Just then, the commotion behind them seemed to have alerted the lead vehicle, and a somewhat portly small boss jumped down from the front and walked over step by step. Upon seeing this person, the leader's heart skipped a beat. He recognized this small boss as the head of the survivor faction that had managed to escape. Known for being ruthless and powerful, someone he couldn't afford to offend. What was he doing here? A thought crossed the leader's mind. Why not take advantage of the situation and pass this trouble on to him? However, a shocking scene unfolded. The portly small boss approached, glanced at the vehicle they had just stopped, and suddenly laughed. He cupped his hands and said to the car and its occupants, "Brother Wang Cheng, what a coincidence. I didn't expect to see you again at this time." The leader's face paled, almost as if he had lost a loved one. What a joke. The people in that car knew the small boss. Not only had they captured Xu Bing, but they also had this kind of connection. Who on earth were they? At that moment, the small boss's gaze swept over, and while he was all smiles towards Wang Cheng, his expression turned indifferent and his tone cold when facing the weaker survivor leader. "Brother, this is my friend." "What do you mean by this?" The leader's face changed dramatically, and he quickly waved his hands, saying, "Misunderstanding. Misunderstanding. It's all a misunderstanding. Quickly, clear the way. Aren't you going to let our boss Chen's friend through?" He and his subordinates swiftly moved the vehicles, their speed astonishing. The small boss was none other than Chen Jigua, who had previously met Wang Cheng at a gas station. Upon recognizing Wang Cheng's vehicle, he felt a stir in his heart and took the initiative to come down, immediately spotting Su Ling and Xu Bing in the car. He had met Su Ling before. As for Xu Bing, when Chen Jigua's gaze fell on her, bound and showcasing her good figure, his pupils constricted sharply, and he felt a tremor run through him. Then, as if he hadn't seen anything, he averted his gaze and said, "It's so great to meet you. I didn't expect you to be here as well. What a coincidence." Wang Cheng had a good impression of Chen Jigua. He was someone who knew his place, and his way of speaking and acting was pleasant. Having him step in to help, although Wang Cheng could manage himself, certainly saved him a lot of trouble. Wang Cheng had not anticipated that the most powerful faction in this convoy would actually be led by Chen Jigua. Xu Bing watched this scene coldly from the corner. Su Ling was also somewhat surprised and reached out to greet Chen Jigua. Wang Cheng said, "It really is quite the coincidence, but this isn't a place to linger. Shall we leave here first?" Chen Jigua nodded, thought for a moment, and said, "If you don't mind, Brother Wang Cheng, shall we leave together for a bit?" "Sure." Wang Cheng nodded in agreement. The convoy slowly moved forward. Seeing that Wang Cheng was friends with Chen Jigua, the members of the other survivor group instantly quieted down. Wang Cheng's vehicle no longer shines as it once did. It looks somewhat worn and tattered, not resembling a formidable survivor. However, Chen Jigua's strength and manpower are evident to all. Everyone follows Chen Jigua to escape, and no one dares to harm his friends. The night is deep, and the far end of the city is shrouded in a bloody hue. Faintly, it seems that the clouds behind the blood-red shadows remain still, eerily suspended in the sky like a forgotten backdrop. The silence does not last long. After proceeding without incident for a while, they hear a deafening roar coming from a distance. Looking far into the horizon, they see a pale, gigantic mutated creature leap from the ground, seemingly having discovered a new target and is desperately chasing after it. Level 5 mutated creatures are dominant presences in their active areas. Those who unknowingly step into this territory are essentially walking to their doom, often becoming prey before they can comprehend the behavior patterns of these diggers. Fortunately, Wang Cheng and his group have managed to leave the hunting grounds of the level 5 creatures without incident. Soon after, they are surrounded by a pack of mutated dogs. In the darkness, shadows of more than 20 mutated creatures emerge. Chen Jigua fires first, and Wang Cheng also extends his rifle to sweep through the area, taking down the mutated beings. His vehicle-mounted machine gun draws everyone's attention. However, modified vehicles are not uncommon. Many skilled individuals in the post-apocalyptic world utilize their talents to survive, which has become relatively common. After eliminating the pack of mutated creatures, Wang Cheng and Chen Jigua briefly exchanged information. Chen Jigua's group had initially fled with the large assembly of survivors from the coastal city, but did not join the survivors' self-defense team, closely following the military convoy during the retreat. However, their entire group was later ambushed by diggers. Chen Jigua claimed that they were almost at the outskirts at that time, and he witnessed a scene that he would never forget. He saw military aircraft approaching rapidly from outside the coastal city, flying low and opening fire. A sight that was incredibly shocking. But shortly after, those aircraft inexplicably self-destructed in the sky, turning into massive fireballs. Wang Cheng felt a chill run down his spine.